Shadows on a scorched horizon, like a wall withstand. Arizona roaring, rising from the scalded sand. The cries of a dead world, calling out in pain. Red skies on the desert, all the blood in a ranger's veins. Static on a distant signal, going fade to wind. Iron in my blistered fingers, leather made my skin. The cries of a dead world, calling out in pain.
What is up?
Not much, brother. How you doing? I'm just kind of laughing at my my 11-year-old. She just put her her scrambled eggs in the freezer so that they can cool down enough quick to eat.
Guess that's
Hey,
one way to do it.
Yes, I mean I usually put stuff in the fridge to cool down, but she's like, "No, I'm hungry. I want this now."
I need food now.
Oh yeah, and trust me, when it comes to like snacking or any kind of drinks, if there's a meal being prepared, these kids have the patience of a firecracker that you've lit after you cut the fuse in half. They see the food. Yeah, she hears you, bud. They see the food and it's like now. And I can appreciate that perspective.
Yeah, I mean, if you're hungry enough, I feel it. It's just like when you get pizza rolls, but you're too like impatient to eat them, so you bite them anyway. It's like lava. Yeah.
Hey, I get hangry too, just like anyone.
Yeah, I get pretty bad when I get hangry.
For the 3-year-old, let me tell you, the hanger is so much worse than like the 5-year-old. When Dennis is hungry and he's getting a little impatient, he'll just be like, he'll sit there and start like rocking back and forth. And after a minute, he'll slam his hands on the table and go, "Dad, food?" It's like, I want to be mad.
Hold on.
But when he says food with that uplilt question to his voice, it's too cute. I can't stay mad.
It just made me think of something. It's kind of like when Heavy was like nervously laughing as like the medic was putting him back together from Team Fortress.
Oh yeah, God, I haven't
like
played Team Fortress in forever.
He's like nervously laughing. I gotta bring it up.
Oh,
okay, hold on.
What was noise?
The sound of progress, my friend. Perfect. Kill me later. Where was I? There we go. Come on. Come on.
This is that nervous laughing of Heavy right there. He's like, is this gonna kill me?
Right, like I want to share in your joy, but your laughter is somewhat maniacal, Doc.
Right. Man. Oh man.
Speaking of all things maniacal and perhaps not quite as healthy as one might want to hope, we're going to be looking into the cinematic health and well-being of the final 2 episodes of Amazon's Fallout adaptation presentation. And let me tell you, folks, at this point, as you've been following along, we've already pretty much determined that at this point, this program is barely sustaining itself on life support.
Oh boy,
We
that's
have
just about as bad as the alkalite right now.
we have hammered the last few episodes pretty heavily over the head, and today is not going to get any better. We're going to pretty much finish the job. And
Yeah.
nearer the end of our presentation of notes into the episodes proper, I want to take a look at how some other folks, particularly larger, well-known YouTubers, and a few folks on Substack have touched base with and reviewed this series, and my ever-growing disappointment in some of these well-known accounts and channels, especially given how often they are lauded as purveyors of great material and deeply knowledgeable. These are the critics that we need. Okay, maybe a little bit. If you have no grasp of reading comprehension or deep critical analysis, perhaps these people could be guiding lights. I, however, tend to find myself so deeply troubled and disappointed in their takes that I find myself wondering how the hell did these people get raised up onto the pedestals of these are the critics we need. These are the tastemakers of the future. Bullshit. If these are tastemakers, what they're feeding you is a pile of dog crap that's been lightly sprinkled from a Baskin Robbins.
Very well put. The critic score versus the user score. That's the question here.
That's a big one. And bear in mind, when I say the folks who have disappointed me the most in terms of their responses to this program have been users who I, in the last year or two, I've really come to trust and feel that their takes on popular culture have been the more accurate takes to listen to.
Yeah. The thing about critic score and user score, I mean, anymore it seems the critic score that we do get for these shows anymore is like more an elite side of shill. Like, it's pretty obvious when you can see the numbers descending through the user score and the critic score. Like,
You're talking about
remote. Yeah,
you're talking about like, dang it, Colin, come here, buddy. You want this?
like the scores are not even remotely close. They're not even comparable. It's one's down, the other one's up. Like, there's not even a balance. It's obviously, one's trying to outweigh the other, but the other one is clearly outweighing the other, which would be the user score.
Right.
And the user score obviously speaks volumes.
Yep, you find it on things like Metacritic, on
Rotten Tomatoes,
IMDb, all of these sites that for the last decade, we've really come to rely upon as independent viewers and as members of the audience. We tend to turn to those sites because they've been a little bit more reliable and relatable to your average everyday normie user and viewer as a good metric or a good sounding board for what can I trust myself to enjoy based on the views and the reception on these sites. The problem that we're running into the last few years is that more and more as you put it, shills, and I love that term because oftentimes these people claim to be independent tastemakers and independent analysts and critics. No, you're not an independent analyst or critic if you're being spoon-fed the material in advance of what everybody else gets to view. You get to see it or hear it or play it before the general public, chances are you're getting that early access in exchange for kudos and good boy brownie points and sucking
sure.
up. It's almost inevitable. And we've seen what happens to people who don't pony up and play nice with these.
Oh, they get demonetized. They get attacked. I mean,
right. Demonetized, get attacked. Their access is cut off. They're defamed. They're decried and told and said, "Oh, don't trust this person anymore."
and then they're forced to go to sponsors and go to things like Patreon or other sites to fund them.
You were trusting these people when they were kissing your ass, but now all of a sudden that they reject your over-the-head clubbing, now they can't be trusted. What happened? Right. Oh, yeah, they stopped blowing you. Sorry, it is what it is. And like I said, the ones who have disappointed me with regards to that, I will talk about a little bit later and kind of name and shame at least a couple of them because, like I said, they were people whose channels I was following for a little while. I touched base with because I thought I've kept myself spoiler-free on this show for so long and so many ways. Now that I've finished it and I've got all my notes together and my synopsis and my kind of summarized review at the back end of all these notes, I want to see how these other folks stack up. One account, came kind of close to where I was seeing things, and I wasn't surprised because we had much the same perspective on the Barbie film.
So, yeah, I never watched the entire thing of that.
Oh, my God, don't bother. You want to save yourself a headache? Don't bother.
That bad, huh?
Yeah. Sorry, coordinating plans with my daughter's buddy's mother so she can go hang out. Because she's getting a little cabin fevery. The weather's not been great here the last few days.
Oh, it's been horrible up here.
What's up?
It's been horrible over here.
Yeah, geographically, you and I are not really too distant, so much of the same weather system.
We're getting almost straight 90s up here.
See, for us in southern Minnesota, it's been a lot of thunderstorms, a lot of
We've had a couple, but it's mostly been humid.
We've had mugginess coupled with these weird, freakish flash rainstorms for like 10, 15 minutes, and then fucking bluebirds singing and the Disney princess with the animals floating in.
Right.
I grab my rifle and go, get the fuck out of here, you weird anthropomorphized fucking whatever you are. But, that's just me having a moment. Anyway.
It was like that the other day. Like, I got to work. It was, completely, super dark out. I was like, damn, real bad storm's coming on. And about an hour later, fucking sun's up, no clouds at all. Super sunny. I'm like, where did all the storm clouds go? Yep, blue skies. I'm like, what happened? Where was the oh shit weather? But
right, you didn't get the ocean. You just had the storm.
I got the muggy humidity is what I got.
Yeah, which is
because the grass was still wet. Sun was hitting it, so it was just just a muggy.
Trust me, for a chubby fellow like me who already sweats too much, having that mugginess on top of it, no bueno.
It was bad enough. Even my AC on high wasn't even doing it.
Boy.
Yeah.
So, brother, do we want to get into it and start with episode 7, the radio?
We do. So, radio, episode 7. We get into this episode, and what appears to be 2 people in Desert Ranger outfits that look like they're scavenging. Which, by the way, the Ranger outfit is actually a riot police uniform. So, I don't know if you knew that.
Yeah, I think I remember that actually it was listed in game as riot gear or riot helmet. And
I believe it was the Honest Hearts or Lonesome Road. One of the two.
yeah, I think it was Lonesome Road.
It had to be one of the two. Because I know you can get like two different unique versions of the armor from both DLC.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean it's visually one of the most incredible designs for my liking.
I like the armor.
It's so distinctive,
Yeah.
and it sets such a tone,
Especially with the duster.
Yeah, that's it's so key, and it's key enough that is the like imagery that is emblematic of Fallout New Vegas.
For sure.
When you think of that game,
yeah, I mean it's a Western like environment, so.
right? It's perfect. Love you too, kiddo. They're set and ready for you. All right, are you taking your scooter?
No, I'm just gonna
You just gonna walk? All right.
Love you.
Love you too. Sorry.
No, you're good.
Just
But to find out though, we come across these two people in the uniforms, and they are not desert rangers. They are just survivors. I'm guessing. What exactly? I mean, I know it was like metal detecting, but was it scavenging?
They're lead farmers.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, they were lead farmers.
It's what the gentleman, the father, ends up describing it as. That they're lead farmers.
So we get into that. They, get out of uniform, go inside, and find Cooper, who is sitting at the table, my guess, eating a Brahmin steak or some kind of protein, in which they think is the daughter. He's like, "Oh, you thought," and they started laughing and took a bite.
Yeah, it was so brilliantly like foreshadowed, kind of hinted at. Like, what do you think is going on, folks?
I mean, it's not unheard of ghouls eating people.
Exactly. Like, you could very easily believe that that's what's happening here. For God's sakes, the guy told Lucy, quote, what was it? Ass
jerky ain't gonna make itself. Nope.
Come on. If you think for a moment.
He's not above eating people.
Exactly. That's the expectation. Now, I gotta say that this was the cinematography, the principal photography for introducing this scene was beautifully done, and it was reminiscent,
Very much so,
for me, to old westerns where like a marshal or a bounty hunter who is this intimidating presence, but not quite maniacal, uses his imposing presence to kind of establish that he is the strong arm of whatever, be it justice, be it law, be it
that, and he's got a hand cannon, shoots slugs.
Right. He is just this terrifying presence, and this it calls back to that sort of that environment of Western films and television shows, or even radio dramas, where you had this imposing figure who is present where they are not expected to be, and that is your introduction to them in the moment. Having that, did he cannibalize this girl? Having that floating question is intense. And
so again, the vibe that I got out of this, and I'm going to go on a lore kind of tangent here, but
sure,
it's not really a tangent, but it gave me a very Fallout 1 Necropolis vibe when he did that. And I'm going to show you why it gave me that vibe.
All right.
Because when you meet Set in Necropolis, which was the ghoul leader, here's what he has to say.
There'd better be a killer reason for standing in my shadow. Does next on the menu ring a bell for you, Normie?
That's beautifully done. That's wonderful lore insertion there, and I definitely tip my hat to you for that, sir.
Yeah, that was the entire vibe I got from them. Like, definitely played into that.
There's a double linkage in here. Maybe you weren't. Maybe it was unintentional. But if it was intentional, further kudos to you, sir.
For sure.
Him saying normie. Look, who else but normies would be this far along in this show and this invested in it and still giving it the benefit of the doubt?
Right.
Normies, people who are not familiar with the lore or who are not looking at this show critically and analytically.
Normie, also known as Smooth Skin, but you know.
Smooth skin.
Yeah.
Gotta tell you something. You smooth skins always made me sick to my stomach.
Yeah, or Desmond from Point Lookout. That was another good one.
He was for as brief a time as you spend with him, he is one of the more fascinating side characters for a quest line that you can come across in all of Fallout 3 and its associated DLC.
Especially the rivalry that he had with the guy that was at the Brain in the Jar in that DLC.
Yeah.
Which went way back before the bombs dropped.
Right. Like these two have been bickering way longer than anybody else around.
Right. Beautiful.
I love too, like the honeycombed estate there, and just kind of the air of there's an air of New England horror laced throughout that entire DLC that almost has a Cthulhu Lovecraftian vibe to it.
Yeah, and I think it has to do with the Dunwich horror with the I forget what they called the book, but it was like a kind of like a spin-off of the Necronomicon in a way.
Yeah, I believe it may have been the Arcanomicon or
something like that.
Like something similar.
Yeah. They had a specific name for the book because it does get taken by some of the swamp folk. That's why, like, how you find the book is the man in the house. I forget his name, but he was one of the Dunwiches, and he was searching for that book that you're supposed to find.
Right.
And when you return that book, there's a statue, like, I guess it was some weird, like, it had to do with you being a pureblood, like somebody who's just not a killer or anything. They were the only one that could destroy the book.
Right. That it wasn't so much a chosen one kind of thing. So much a do you fit the paradigm?
Right. That's gonna bother me now. I need to know the name of the book.
No, not a problem, man. You can definitely look that.
Uh-oh.
I'll be right back.
That's what it was called. The Krifbekna. We're getting sidetracked off of Fallout lore. Don't mind us, especially me. Fallout has a lot of dark lore to it, more so than what the show gives off. If you're a fan of Fallout 1 and 2 Tactics, or even New Vegas or 3, like the lore is super, super dark. And that was another issue I had with the show, was I feel like there was a more darker side to the show that they could have dived into.
Yeah.
With certain elements. Like, don't get me wrong, like the Gulper was cool, but it could have been scarier, you know? Like, it could have been a little more fearsome. Don't get me wrong, the fingers inside of its mouth was pretty messed up, but I feel like, I don't know. I feel like in season 2 they could touch more on some like FEV horror type stuff.
Right, more of the mutations, more of the monstrosities that that you typically meet in the games.
Because, like, you know, the raiders that we first come in contact with that come into the vault, you know, they had a little more of a serious vibe to them. You know, but then like the raiders that Maximus comes across when they're trying to jack the power armor, they just seemed super goofy to me.
Right, like those guys, they definitely didn't have their shit together. They were, I would almost say they weren't raiders so much as scavengers. They didn't really have a game plan or any familiarity with what they were doing.
Yeah, but I mean, any wasteland folk would be scary enough, you know? Especially them. I mean, they had the look to them, but how they acted was another thing.
Yeah, they were more goofball kind of.
Yeah, I mean,
almost hayseeds, I think would
right.
be the term. Like they didn't know what exactly to do.
They just, yeah, kind of a letdown to me, to be honest. It just, I don't know. That fight could have been a little more gruesome, I think.
Yeah, and I mean it was gruesome in the end, obviously with the
oh yeah, fucking head popping,
like an overripe grape.
Yeah. Yeah, you know, that's kind of like what I was touching on before. Like they had the big opportunity with the vault with all the mutant people. Like they had such a big opportunity to like introduce a cult, and they built it up as such.
Right.
But when they did the whole exile thing, I'm like, oh my god, you just ruined it.
Well, it really kind of, for me, undercut that whole cult thing was they ended up roping it into being yet another play on or more inclination or indication that Moldaver was this central character to everything going on in the wastes.
Right.
Which again, I understand plot reasons why they would do that, but
I get it.
It felt like a gigantic wasted opportunity.
For sure. And not only that, I mean, it's just they made Moldaver like overshadow a lot of the other factions that are in the universe of Fallout. And you hear.
Hold on. Let me mute this.
You hear Moldaver like mentioned several times, especially through the government, which was like the, you know, their take on some like inbred hillbilly type like state troopers that it was like a bad take of super troopers, literally. Yep. And like, you know, even they're like, oh man, you know, that bitch is scary. They're dangerous. And it's like, how dangerous are they? Yeah, sure they got guns, sure they got armor and all that, but like what would stop like a group of legionnaires coming in there, or, you know, like any faction for that matter, and putting up a fight?
Nothing. All he had there was Deputy Dog and Deputy Doug, and they were laid waste pretty quick.
Right. But I mean, like, you know, like I said, how they're presenting Moldaver throughout this whole show, it's just they don't seem like that big of a threat. Fallout wise, they don't.
No. And yet we're also supposed to empathize or sympathize with this woman, and we'll get to that.
I can't.
No, we'll come along to that.
I'm sorry, I could not.
But back into where we're at in the episode, and I know this is a point of contention for you and I. We have a mild disagreement when it comes to the character of Cooper and his.
Well, it depends. I mean, what do you mean as far as disagreement?
This scene, this point, where for me at the 7-minute mark, and this is, I'm just reading off of the note as I have it written down. For the second time in 2 episodes, Cooper verbally prods someone into drawing on him and summarily kills them. With the deputy dopes, it was certainly deserved. Here with the younger man, Tommy, this felt more unnecessary. The kid wouldn't have been any threat to Cooper if the ghoul hadn't gone out of his way to taunt him with having killed the older brother, or at least implying that he killed the older brother, because we have no proof on screen or off screen that he did so.
I mean, to be fair, let's say he killed the one guy. Couldn't he still pick up the gun and try to shoot him?
Right. Again, let me get to the...
Yeah, I know.
But to me, just this poking Tommy, until he kind of pushes the issue to the point of confrontation. For me, it bordered on cruel rather than utilitarian, because it negates the last few episodes worth of flashbacks to me in terms of character presentation and character traits. There was no need, no pressing need to kill this kid. He knew that he may become a problem later, could maybe track Cooper down or follow after him. But Cooper has shown restraint when it's not necessary to kill someone. And this absolutely was, for me, an instance where he didn't have to kill this kid.
So are you saying this in like inconsistency?
Yes, it's an inconsistent character moment for me, because there's no need to kill the kid, to push him to the point where he's going to draw on you. Even if your back is turned, Cooper has proven through the other combat sequences that he's had to this point that even if the kid had waited until Cooper's back was turned to him, he's proven that he can draw down and take out a hostile target on his 6 without worry and without even really much hesitation. He is a ghoul. Even if the kid gets a good lucky shot in his back, that's not going to kill Cooper. He can then turn and eliminate the threat. Unless that kid is a dead crack shot and puts one in his skull, this kid is not a threat. So why push the confrontation? All you're doing at that point is removing a working member of this small clutch family and reducing their survival odds. You have reduced the father and the daughter's ability to survive in an already hard scrabble environment, while the whole argument of that's not his circus, it's not his monkeys, so it's not his circus, he wouldn't care because he does not operate on the morality that he had as a human being. I will grant you that. What I will not grant, however, is that he is cruel, because that has not been established as part of his being a ghoul, is that abject cruelty. And that is why I personally took this as a bad writing moment. Yeah. That this was a devolution to mark the character as not as decent a guy as audiences might want him to be.
I can agree to some of that, but again, I'm still going to go back to what I said. We're dealing with a Cooper that is past the bombs. He's 200 and so years old. Morals are like a may happen, may not happen, like a toss of the coin. So what I mean by that is, this is a man who literally just told Lucy, well, ass jerky's not going to make itself.
Right.
So for somebody like him, and he's even said it before, he does it for the thrill of the game. To people, they're a game to him. Whether he has like any attachment or not to him. I mean, it's just who he is. So to him, he's just thinking of these guys like two idiots that, had just taken his guns and stuff from him, mind you.
Right.
I mean, that's probably already an insult to him alone.
Right. Like Deputy Dog and Deputy Doug. I don't know the character's actual names.
We're going to go with that. But
right. Deputy Dog and Deputy Doug getting pretty much just murked outright. Totally understandable. But again, I come back to while I understand that, yes, he does not have the morality that he had as a human being, especially being as long survived as he has been a ghoul, there has not been up to this point. Actually, I can't say that. There's been one moment where he has shown a proclivity, not necessarily for cruelty, but for utilitarianism that borders on the maniacal or cruel. And that's when he sells Lucy in exchange for files. But again, that is to ensure his own survival. There is a fucked up utilitarianism there.
But you got to think before that, though. Look at how he played with her. He kept telling her, "Oh, you got all this water, but I'm not, not a drop to drink."
Right.
And again, he's playing on her golden rule.
Playing on the golden rule, and at the same time trying to impart kind of an abject learning moment or abject lesson.
Right.
Like, hey, kid, if you're going to survive up here, you need to toughen the fuck up.
Right.
He could have been much worse, maniacally cruel and sadistic to her, but he wasn't. And again, comparing that moment of...
You still have to take into account, though, he's still tracking down this doctor. So there is still technically a portion of, utilitarianism in this whole thing.
Right.
He did use her.
Right, utilitarianism. He used her to track
the
head. He used her to try and get the vials
to get the head
and himself. That's utilitarianism that goes right to the borderline of cruel. But I wouldn't say it's cruelty because, at least in his own methodology, there is a point to it. There is something which he can gain from that. What does he gain from killing Tommy?
Well, it's not so much what he could gain, because he did say that he killed his brother. So
he's prodding the kid.
Right.
He's trying to push him into a confrontation.
Right. But he also says, sooner or later, you're going to come after me, so let's start here.
Right, but that is an open question. That's not utilitarianism.
No, I'm not saying it is.
That's just poking the bear to get a response so he can satisfy his own urge to kill, which is not consistent because it's not utilitarian. He is not.
Again, we're talking about a ghoul here, a ghoul who's lived a long life. He's not always going to be a consistent guy in morals. Those are always going to shift like a mood swing. He's going to care for a dog at one moment and then kill some kid the next moment. It's kind of like his shamble when he did it in Philly. When he's being shot at. Think of it like that. Oh, I love this dog. Fuck this kid. It's just, he's a shambling mess.
Right. And again, I can tip my hat a little to that, but I'm not convinced.
Well, I'm just saying he's not going to be like a consistent, morally just character. Like when it comes to goals and stuff, like Thaddeus, like we brought up.
Yeah.
Like, he's not point to point to point. He's a ghoul. He's a bounty hunter. He's playing by his own rules.
Right.
And whether they're good or bad, that's up to him.
Right. And that's why this is a complex character. And part of why, in the overall, he's one of my favorite elements of the show. One of the few redeeming qualities of this show is Cooper. As much as I'm growling about this one moment, it is just one moment. And compared to or set against the rest of his presentation throughout the program, it's a drop in the bucket. It's a minor, for me, it's a minor inconsistency of character that, guess what? The rest of the character is so superbly done that I'm willing to just kind of...
I'm still going to say he's my favorite.
He's definitely up there. I'm torn, but I don't know why, but I'm just going to say I'm torn between him and Lucy. I really am. Which one of them is my favorite?
I like Lucy, but I can tell you what, I do not like Maximus whatsoever.
No, fuck him. We're both in agreement on that one.
Yeah. I cannot stand the motherfucker. I cannot stand him.
Oh, let's move into the next little note here I've got here. This was something that boggled my mind how this was allowed to be written in without somebody throwing the fucking brakes on and saying, wait, this is going to throw up so many red flags. It's going to look like a national holiday in communist China.
Oh boy.
It's at the 11-minute mark when Cooper, it's a flashback moment, when Cooper is talking to Moldaver and they're having their little back and forth. And she tells him about how she's, she got bought out. Her research for the energy, the cold fusion, got bought out by Vault-Tec. And he's like, oh, that's a rare thing. That must be unheard of. A millionaire communist. Her response made me want to gouge my fucking ears off the sides of my head. Because she says, quote, I'm not a communist, Mr. Howard. That's just a dirty word they use to describe people who aren't insane. Okay, how about a different word, lady? Like maybe gaslighting.
Mm-hmm.
Fucking Hegelian dialectic word game horseshit. I wanted to scream until blood came out of my mouth. There's a reason why people like this, when they, and the Charlie Whitehorse, when they get into their highfalutin, I'm so much better and have a clearer view of the world and how it should work than you, kind of soapbox preaching, I want to reach up, grab them by their scrawny fucking necks and throw them over the nearest railing into the Grand Canyon without the benefit of Mr. Graham being present to say, get yourself coated in pitch and set on fire. You might survive the trip down to Zion Canyon. Fuck this lady.
Yeah. It's just how pretentious she was the entire time. Like, her morals just outsurpass everybody. And that alone was like, okay, but how do you know you're right? It's literally said in the show. Everybody's trying to save the world in their own way.
Right. Which is moral relativism. Mm-hmm. And I'm sorry, that is a dialectic tactic, a conversational tactic utilized by fringe left fucking septum-pierced, blue-haired, neon-faced weirdos with no concept of how things actually function in a working society. These are the same kind of people who will sit there and tell you that they believe in the concept of I'm getting too far ahead of myself. Sorry. From those according to their abilities to those according to their needs. That Marxist, Leninist horse shit. These are the same people who will say, you must give up a portion of what you worked so hard for. Oh, by the way, don't have any more children. These anti-natalist, anti-family bugheads who've got no concept of how a society can actually move forward and continue to work. It doesn't operate if you cut out the entire foundation level. It just doesn't. Sorry.
No, you're good. Yeah, I'll step away here in a second. I gotta grab something. Sure. No, I totally agree. It's sickening that sure, there should be at least an opposing party in this whole time that opposes, because I mean it's politics,
Right.
The problem I have is how announced it is compared to the opposer of it.
Oh yeah, it's layered into everything. Every moment
100%.
of the show, from like the middle of episode 6 onward, it's so overt that you cannot tell me that you watched this show and didn't come away thinking, oh, they're supporting the communist kind of perspective.
Right.
There's
the whole
no way.
Communist socialist idea. And it's just...
And it comes through too in like the sideline conversations when Moldaver is talking to Cooper in the flashbacks and mentions that, oh, well, it doesn't seem coincidental that Vault-Tec has poured so much money and so much research and so many resources into these vaults. What are they going to do if there's peace, if there's a conversation and they don't get their war?
Right.
Which leads to which leads to ultimately to Cooper's wife issuing a line that, quite frankly, I know made you want to blow something up.
Yeah.
Having Cooper's wife deliver the most famous line tied
The line. The
line.
fucking prologue line.
Ron Perlman is supposed
Ron
to deliver
Perlman is supposed to deliver that line. He's delivered that line through all the fucking games. All of them. And for her to deliver the line, I mean, it was one thing, I don't know. I feel like that should have been like a line that like where he would have been like a news anchorman or something. And then he had said that.
Right.
Or something.
Or, you know who should have delivered the line? Maybe if it's not going to be Ron Perlman, Cooper as the ghoul.
Yeah.
Because, goddamn it, who else would know better than a guy who had, as a human,
in the military,
right? As a human, had seen war, and as a ghoul, has known the war of survival.
Mm-hmm. Especially like when he was walking up, during the little battle that they have at the end. I'm not going to get into that just yet, but I feel like that would have been the opportune time, him walking past the bodies and be like, damn, war never changes. That would have been the perfect time to say that. Just walking around a bunch of dead bodies with bullets riddled in them, and you go, damn, war never changes. Perfect opportune time to say that. Or be like, I guess war never changes, or something. It add a little spice to it, but have all the bodies around him as he's walking past all the bodies. I was trying to burp there and kind of came out weird, but the fact of the matter is, how this line was delivered was pure fucking opportunism, in my own opinion, and just for the sake of, I want to say at least woke ideology, in my own opinion. It's not a man delivering the line this time. It's a woman delivering the line.
For my part, you know me, I'm slightly more forgiving of these things. Not much. For me, it was more a matter of, okay, go ahead, buddy. Go ahead. I'll be right there. It's not so much that it was a woman delivering the line. It's, lady, you're not even a frontline combatant.
Right.
You don't know war.
You don't know anything about it. You just to say, oh, we're going to drop the bombs. Like, that doesn't very much well compute. And that's not even a war. That's just you being an asshole and killing everybody for monetary gain. Because apocalypse sells. This whole series at the end, and like you said, it works its way up into being something somewhat good, to then just going right back down to the bottom. It's literally like a roller coaster. You climb your way halfway up, and it's just right back down. And it's just down from there.
Yeah, there is no upside at this point.
I'll be right back.
All right, brother. It's all just kind of, it falls apart. It collapses in on itself. I hear you, sweetie. Want out? Okay. I'll let you out. Done in the high chair? All right. Whoop. Oh. There you go. Yeah, look.
Ow.
There we go. All right. Where was I here? There we go. So yeah. Yes, you got your dinosaur. Is he still work? Oh, careful. I don't want him to nip your finger. Ah! Yeah. Looks a little like a death claw. There you go. I think there's a reason for that. That whole dinosaur terror. All right. Hold on. Colin, stay here. Stay here. Stay here for a minute. Stay there for a minute.
I am back.
All righty. Sorry, I took the opportunity to grab a smoke and nip out here to the garage quickly.
Oh, you're good.
So yeah, I mean, from here on, I've got my notes, but I'm almost convinced that at this point, I just need to stick to just the highlights, because I don't want to get lost in the minutia, and frankly, there's not that much minutia remaining.
Yeah.
I was happy to get back to catching up to see what Thaddeus was doing, especially with the dog, with CX404. I found it kind of telling to his character that he didn't shoo the dog away. He didn't try to scare it away with a firearm or make it go off. He didn't try to get rid of the dog. He just let it follow along. But I was also a little curious about the fact that the dog didn't seem interested at all in his injury. German Shepherds, while even as well trained and well raised as CX404 possibly was, you would think that he would at least pester Thaddeus a little bit, given that he's dragging a bloody stump through wasteland. Dogs, German Shepherds especially, they're meat eaters. And I'm sorry, but it tweaked me a little bit that the dog didn't pester him that much about this. It just went along for the ride.
Mm-hmm.
But I also felt it was in keeping with his character that he didn't shoo the dog away. He didn't try to hurt it. It was just there, and he used the dog as kind of a sounding board, someone to talk to that couldn't necessarily respond. Again, kind of going in with that goofiness to the character that you mentioned, that he is kind of a rube, a hayseed, a hick.
Yeah, there's parts of me that want to like Thaddeus, especially the honorable part of, disarming the power armor with the fusion core and basically calling out Maximus for being a fraud and, Knight Titus's armor.
Yeah.
It's just, I have a hard time taking him serious in that case and how he conveys himself.
Right. And in the scene where he's traveling,
he's got this schoolboy mentality to him.
Yeah.
In
the scene where he's traveling, I think it's when he gets to the Red Rocket Station, or may have been like as he's traveling. I can't remember which, but sound choice or soundtrack choice. Again, for an audiovisual storytelling presentation, I thought at this point was a curious choice because they use Merle Travis's 16 Tons song, which may seem like kind of a good Keats choice given
I think I know why they added that song in particular.
What's your perspective on it?
Fallout 76 has that same track in it. If you played Fallout 76 at all, that same track is in there.
Okay.
And I want to say maybe it's just like a shot that people that, are obviously playing the game because, hey, Fallout show's out. I want to, as soon as I get done with the show, I'm going to go grind out some levels in Fallout 76. It's like, oh, hey, I heard this song in Fallout 76. That's my take on it. Like, it's just like, oh, hey, by the way, I heard this song in this game.
Okay. It could very well be.
I think it's just like, hey, by the way, Fallout 76 is still a thing when you get done,
Okay.
But,
See, I've never played the game, so for me, I didn't have that tie-in, and that is the choice that makes the least assumptions. That's Hanlon's razor, which is, or not Hanlon's razor, Occam's razor, which is whatever explanation requires the least assumptions or leaps of logic is most likely the explanation. That seems perfectly fitting.
I feel like it's just their marketing for like people that have played the game. They're like, oh, hey, I recognize this tune.
I'm a little embarrassed then to even give my note on this point because I didn't have that awareness, having not played the game.
Some of the tracks are from the games. I mean, even the ink spots.
Right? The ink spots, I know, are littered throughout. And while it's a little embarrassing, I'm going to go ahead and read up.
That's what we're here for.
I thought with this song being really kind of anti-corporate, anti-capitalist in tone, that kind of tone or messaging has become so saturated in the show at this point. But for my liking, it kind of belies what the showrunners and writers may have been aiming for and misses the point entirely for attaching this song to Thaddeus, who is a member of an order that has a sense of nobility and sacrifice for the heartfelt members of the Brotherhood, this monastic order, Brotherhood of Steel. They're not a corporation. So why would you attach this song, which has anti-capitalist sentiments, to this character who has nothing to do with that economic system? It's just more ham-fisted messaging.
Yeah, it probably isn't even the. I mean, you do got to think he was carrying the big bag with the machine gun and all that in it.
Right.
It could have been reference to that. It could have been reference to his foot being crushed. And now he's carrying the burden of the mission.
Yep, there's simpler answers that maybe I'm just being too anal retentive.
It could be a multitude of things.
Right. But the whole tie-in of, hey, Fallout 76 is still a thing.
It's on the radio.
I feel a little embarrassed. I feel, like I said, a little embarrassed that maybe I'm looking and jumping at shadows. Because that's a simpler explanation, and that makes perfect sense. So that can definitely calm me down a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you want to discuss the scene of him missing all the shots in his 10mm? But he somehow hit the gulper with the assault rifle?
Only briefly. And I'm going to say this in as cartoonish a fashion as I possibly can. Lucy and Cooper, or Lucy and Maximus in this moment, don't need armor. They have the best armor of all, thanks to the writers. They have plot armor.
Yep.
My God. You have shown Thaddeus to be competent and capable with the Brotherhood gear. You have shown him to be skilled to a degree. But then when presented with this fraud and this total stranger, he can't hit the broadside of a barn?
Do you think maybe in stats he had maybe a lot of it invested in luck, or maybe he had a small percentage in the small guns?
I think he would have had to have a small guns of 10 to miss that immensely, that insanely. His agility had to be at a 2.
Right. Well, especially the decrease with the foot injury.
Okay, maybe, but by then he was walking because he had the regrown foot.
Yeah.
So why didn't he plant? Why didn't he plant, support, and aim?
Or even take stance in a kneel, crouch.
Right? Like, what happened here? You're going to break every world-building conceit and piece of logic you've built up to this point, especially surrounding this character, to wrap Lucy and Maximus in plot armor? Get fucked.
Keep in mind, we're only joking about the stat building in Fallout. That's supposed to be satire, but
right. It's supposed to be. But at this point, I'm so far gone into the realm of I don't care anymore that at this point, I'm willing to bring it up.
Yeah. Not only that, though, just this whole talk with the chicken guy. I'm going to call him Chicken Guy. Yeah, chicken fucker.
or Cartman, chicken lover.
Yeah. That whole transaction of the fluids that he had huffed. Do we want to get into that?
Possibly a little bit, just very lightly. You would be much more knowledgeable, and I would trust your take on this a lot more than my own. In that, I think what the chicken lover gave him was some kind of modified offshoot of FEV, which is the force.
FEV didn't make ghouls, though.
No, it didn't. But that's why I said I think it's some kind of modified version, or for the sake of the show as presented.
2 reasons why I'm going to say it's not FEV is because FEV was harnessed with like chemical suits, like power armor and hazmat suits. Being exposed to it, and during the times of Mariposa when the Enclave were trying to dig up the rubble to go inside the Mariposa base after the Vault Dweller destroys the Mariposa base in Fallout 1.
Yeah.
And the Enclave had basically rounded up a bunch of slaves, like slave workers, to dig up the site. And when they were exposed to the FEV without any sort of environment suit of any kind, they began to start huffing in the fumes of FEV and started changing into super mutants.
Even just the gaseous vapors off of it was powerful enough to cause
the same thing that happened with Harold. He didn't turn into a full mutant, but he turned into a kind of mutant.
Mm-hmm.
Like it was an in-between, like he was still kind of falling apart. And then eventually had a tree growing out of his head.
Right. And given even that level of exposure, how the hell does the chicken lover carry this stuff around and not end up some kind of freakish monstrosity himself?
That's why I'm saying it's, it's very unlikely it's FEV. I think this is something that they concocted up as far as a ghoul serum that keeps them sane. We still don't even really know what it's made of. We just know it keeps them from turning feral. And that's all we know. Even though there's no mention in the games of what this serum would be. But there was the announcement of Fallout 76 where you can now start becoming a ghoul.
Stay out of there.
Maybe in Fallout 76 they'll talk about what the serum may be. They'll bring it to the game. I don't know yet. But you do have the ability now that you can become a ghoul in Fallout 76.
Well, do you think that's something that they're gonna
again, I have no idea.
All right. I gotta go off screen here for a minute.
Yep, you're good. Yeah, as far as this serum that Thaddeus had huffed, it could be anything that they're going to write up for probably the next season. I'm sure they'll explain what it is, but FEV, I think, is very unlikely. Especially how Frank Corrigan became a mutant, which was after he was exposed to it. I think there was like a breach in his power armor, and then that's when they started experimenting on him.
Yeah, Horrigan the Horrible.
Yeah. Literal, mechanical, mutated monstrosity. He wielded power armor that injected drugs into him constantly. That kept him alive.
I got to ask, because, again, I didn't play 2, so you would know far better than I. Was MedX, like reduce pain? Was that one of the meds that was used on him in the suit?
I believe a ton of it was. Considering the armor was like keeping him together.
Right. It's like it became a double. It was like Darth Vader. It was his life support system and his armor.
Yeah, it was literally what kept him together. It was what kept him alive and what kept him whole. I wouldn't bother I mean, I couldn't even imagine what would have happened had the armor come off. I feel like maybe because he was such a crazed, cold-blooded killer, maybe he would have became more mad as a mutant. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe even like the head of a mutant tribe of some kind.
Right. Have his own little, to use the term, enclave off of the enclave. Wordplay.
Yeah, he was the biggest super mutant. Like as far as like we didn't take in behemoths into account until Fallout 3. Like they weren't a thing until Fallout 3. So as far as super mutants go, like he was the biggest one.
Right. And behemoths, even as presented in Fallout 3, are just complete mindless berserkers.
Oh yeah.
Whereas
Horrigan, a big clump of biomass with,
Right. Whereas Horrigan still has the intelligence and wherewithal to have dialogue and use equipment.
He considered you the mutant.
Right. Which, if you ask me, that makes it all the more terrifying.
Yeah. Even with his American Enclave propaganda built into his brain, he considered you the mutant. Yep. You were the unclean. He wasn't unclean. He wasn't a mutant.
No,
you were also a communist. You were also a communist as well in his eyes.
Well, I mean, if you're a writer on the show, then you are a commie.
Yeah.
So
we'll get more into that.
Yeah. At the 26-minute mark in this episode, Maximus finally comes clean to Lucy. And rather than being condescending and judgmental, as I personally might have been toward him, she says, quote, "I just threw acid in an innocent man's face, and I've only been up here for 2 weeks." Lucy's naivete here fails her as a character because each choice that she has made has been out of a need to survive. The original Titus was being a bully and a blowhard. I'll admit that. The Brotherhood might have reprimanded Maximus and clowned on him quite a bit, yes, but they would not have, quote, strung him up for the buzzards as Titus threatened in that original sequence.
I think if he continued the mission, they would have actually honored him more.
Right. He would have gotten some kind of accolade and maybe a slap on the wrist, but then a probable promotion for killing the Yagwai.
Oh, yeah.
Again, the writers, however, on this program have no respect for the source lore, especially for an order based upon or founded upon self-sacrifice and service.
Like I said, Arthur Maxon killed a Deathclaw when he was a kid.
Yep.
He was like 13 years old. He killed a fucking Deathclaw and was riding in the fucking Pridwin as an elder.
Yep.
I mean...
yep. Just no respect for what came before.
Yeah.
None.
Like, don't get me wrong, being reprimanded, sure, but like, there were also the principles of honor for killing such things or doing such heroic deeds.
Right, a sense of glory.
Like, yeah, oh, for sure. It's just to say that he would have been hung for what he, for what he was doing in the mission. I mean, honestly, had Titus died, do I really think him taking the armor and going about the mission and reporting in, saying, "Hey, Titus is dead. What are my orders?" or whatever? I mean, I really think they would have kept him continuing the mission.
That's a very possible outcome. outcome, given their limited resources, and they're on a race against the clock to find and capture this MacGuffin.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
but even
dude,
then, they didn't have a shortage of weapons. I mean, he was requisitioned. I hate to use the word squire, but he was requisitioned a fucking recruit or initiate,
right?
And then came with a goodie bag of stuff,
a big old goodie bag,
right? Like, ah, man. But then to see him later on without the armor and the whole weird ceremony thing they did,
yeah.
To have him so nerfed in means of gear with literally nothing but a uniform and a 10mm revolver, along with Dane as well, same setup.
Yep.
They're carrying fucking handguns and uniforms and no rifles or nothing, and they're going to fucking war with this off-brand faction.
Right, and no energy weapons. Come on.
The only energy weapon I seen was the one Moldaver had, and she didn't even use it.
No, I mean, for God's sakes, G.I. Joe, knowing is half the battle. 50% knowing, 50% knowing, 25% red lasers, 25% blue lasers. The meme is true and should have held for this program. Where were any discharges of energy weapons?
And that's another thing. The complete incessant use of the assault rifles that they had for the power armor, I think, was very lazily done, because they had the same guns. All the power armor had the same guns, except for I think like one who had the weird giant Desert Eagle looking pistols. But my point being is, where's the variation of weapons that the Brotherhood would be carrying? At least one of them would have been carrying a fucking minigun.
Right, a minigun or a Gatling laser.
Or a rocket launcher. Like
a flamer.
Yeah, like,
because there are Brotherhood of Steel
or a plasma caster.
Yeah. The Tesla cannon. Come on.
Fuck, even a 50 cal machine gun or something. Like, they're power armor suits. They're built for big guns.
Right. Like, have an anti-material rifle on hand.
Oh, I think, like, if they had done that with regular uniforms and they had them set up prone somewhere, taking headshots and blowing torsos apart and, like, like making a full gore fest of people, like, that would have been totally cool. But, like, power armor, they're literally the first assault, the front line.
And we'll get into the final battle scene soonish. But there's one other thing in that I want to touch upon when we get there. Mm-hmm. We get some back, some looking back at Vault 33 with the prisoners. They all died of rat poisoning. There's kind of some implications made that maybe it was Betty who arranged that. I personally think it was Stephanie, since she is also a Vault 31
I think they're in cahoots with each other.
Right. They're both Vault 31 people, and she would have a personal vendetta against these Raiders / Moldaver's people, in that they killed her husband and took her eye. So the whole eye for an eye thing comes into play yet again. Norm kind of looks at her weird too when they pass each other, and I thought, well, maybe they're implying that he suspects her.
Oh, even the whole cake scene.
Yeah, that. But there were moments when they come back to the vault that, again, I thought were brilliant uses of building on the character of Norm. But at this point in the show, it feels like almost too little too late. Like, there's so much else that is going piss poorly for this program that, as much as I like Norm and want to see him continue to carry on getting investment in screen time, I almost don't care as much, which is a shame, because he's a brilliantly developed secondary character.
I like the idea that he's uncovering things. Sure.
Yes.
Because it's interesting. it's
Right.
very much interesting, like, to know what's going on.
Right. And they're showing that he is an investigative mind, that there is a sense of mystery that he's diving into, which takes its own special brand of courage.
Right.
He called himself a chicken and a coward earlier, but you're seeing character.
And admirably so.
You're right. He's self-aware of his own limitations, but you're also seeing character growth and his willingness to, okay, I'm putting myself at risk, but it's in an area where he has the skill set and the tool set available or necessary to justify the risk he's taking. Because
Right.
his area of risk is the intellectual, is the investigative, is the curious minded. And he can take risks in that area because that's where he excels and has a skill set and a tool set available to him to make the risk reward analysis fall in favor of taking the risk. But then, like, later on, when he's saying goodbye to Chet, and he's like, he basically throws it in Chet's face that, hey, man, you're taking the easy way out. You're being a coward. And Chet looks at him. Chet's a huge dude. He could clearly handle himself. In the opening sequence, in the raid during the massacre, Chet actually engages in hand-to-hand combat with a couple of raiders and takes them down. Like, they show that he's physically capable.
Yeah,
and here's telling him that he's the one being a coward. And Chet's response, I thought, was beautiful when he says, we live in a vault. We're all cowards.
Yeah, I mean, I agree, but, like, overall, like, him doing the hand-to-hand combat, that's one thing. It's cool. But the way he's perceived as a character, it feels more chicken shit than Norm.
Yeah, because he's taking the easy path. He's taking the I don't want any trouble here. Whereas Norm takes the enormous risk of going into the complete unknown.
The enormous risk.
I did not intend that.
I had to, man. I had to.
Nice. Great game on that one. Good wordplay on you, sir. Thank you for that. I can't take credit for that one. That was all you. That was well done. Well played.
It's like a dad joke.
But it's beautiful. It's beautiful. It gives me a moment to smile when talking about this show that made me not want to smile. But overall,
unfortunately,
that last scene in this episode where Norm he's creeping into the unknown dark, and he has that cutaway moment of he's looking at something that clearly has him completely flabbergasted, and they cut away, and it's like, shit, nail biter, cliffhanger. What's going to happen? That last moment of what's going on. Good hook, well played. But my sincere message to the writing room of this show at this point is to the small handful of talented visual storytellers and folks who are obviously well-versed in metaphor and semiological storytelling. Get out of Amazon Studios. Get away. Find a better project to work on because you deserve better.
Still, though, I think they still need to touch upon what actually happened in Vault 32.
Yeah, I would like to see a full explanation from the top down. If for no other reason than to satisfy my curiosity.
Let us understand what the experiment was.
Right. Like, I have that hypothesis of the Rat Utopia experiment being overlaid on humans. I really want to know if I was right on that one. If I'm off base, I'm okay with that.
And just the anarchy and carnage that had happened after that. Like, what were the points that got it in motion and ended up in the result that it did?
And who among the populace, like, obviously from what you saw scrawled in different places on the walls, someone cottoned on to what was going on. What was their thought process once they figured out what was going on? Did they just snap? But that moves us out of episode 7 into the final episode. Episode 8, entitled The Beginning. How clever. We started episode 1 called The End. We're going to have episode 8, the last episode, be The Beginning. You're not clever. Sorry. That irritates me.
Yeah.
Thank you, buddy. He agrees. But I'm going to really quick start this off. From the word go, this episode is just all wrong. Why are they portraying the Brotherhood as a bunch of expansionist thugs like this? This is a complete subversion switch to their entire order. They aren't conquerors. Did someone confuse these people in the writer's room with Caesar's Legion or something? Because there's a conversation between a couple of the members who say, yeah, it was kind of hairy at first, but we made sure we got them put in their place. An actual hood outfit would not talk like that. They wouldn't treat people like that. While they do look down upon most Wastelanders, and they do, they look on most Wastelanders as redneck idiot scumbags, that they don't go out of their way to denigrate and pound them over the heads and take their shit.
Do you remember when they started out this show, like what the, I guess, idea what the Brotherhood was supposed to be?
For the
because
show,
there was no NCR.
No, there's no NCR.
So we had this conversation the last time.
Yeah.
That they were pretty much wiped out, and we're not saying who yet. We'll get to that point. But the simple fact of the matter is, which really ruins a lot of the lore aspect for me, but the Brotherhood was considered the law and order of California.
Right.
Which was never the case in Fallout.
Nope.
They hid out in bunkers.
Yeah, they
went on patrols. They scouted around, scavenged, but they were not conquerors.
No, they were isolationists.
Mm-hmm.
They were exclusionary, not just for their own benefit, though. They were also exclusionary for the benefit of the Wastelanders. They did not want to intercede and step on their necks. That was never their intended purpose.
No.
They were there to assist in maintaining some level of order to support those systems or tribes or national groupings.
I wouldn't necessarily say support them, but they kind of scurried around them a little bit.
Right. Well, maybe not support. Okay, maybe that's too strong a term. But they did occasionally intercede to kind of say, hey, this is getting a little too out of hand.
Oh, for sure.
We're going to help put things back to a neutral position, and then we're going to back away. We're getting the hell out of here.
It depends on the scale of the situation, though.
Well, right. Like when
in Fallout 1, the super mutant issue that they had.
Right. They had to step in. No one else could have handled that. In Fallout New Vegas, they butted heads. They clashed with the NCR openly over gaining control of the Poseidon Energy Station.
Helios 1.
Or, sorry, Helios 1, yeah. Yep. Because they saw giant risk factor in that falling into the wrong hands. And while it may be...
Well, that was a little more skewed because it was the Elder, I said Eldar, Warhammer talk. The Elder who was in, it was a DLC Fallout New Vegas with the Sierra Madre. I can't think of the name of the DLC. But you wind up finding this Elder there.
Right.
He was in charge of the Conquer of Helios 1.
Was that McNamara, or was McNamara the one who was in the bunker?
I'm pretty sure he was the one that was in the bunker. I think it was like, he had some sort of name like, not Tobias. It was something. I'm trying to think of his name.
It was something biblical. Was it Isaiah?
No. Hold on.
Sure.
Elder Elijah. That's what it was.
Elijah. There we go. See, again, I knew it was biblical.
It was Father Elijah in the DLC for Dead Money, but
Right.
he was a former elder of the Brotherhood of Steel, and he had led a
Yep.
group of the Brotherhood to Helios One. But when they fell to the NCR, he had fled to Dead Money, which was the Sierra Madre.
Right. Now, I don't remember. Did he flee there because he was ashamed or?
No, there was relics to be claimed there,
Okay.
and you were his guinea pig to get through all that. That's why he fitted you with a bomb collar and made you do all the stuff for him.
I'm going to say something that may piss you off. I don't know. Dead Money was the only New Vegas DLC I didn't play through.
I played through it just for the sake of knowing what it was about, but
I intended to. I fully intended to play it, but I just never got around to it. I found it the least interesting of my options for DLC.
If you get into it further, it does get a little more interesting. Like, it's got a rough start, no doubt. But some of the characters that you come across, like I believe his name was Danny Domino, who was a ghoul that was before the bombs fell.
Okay.
You had him. You also had the initiate from, or it was like a brother, not an initiate. I think she was a knight. I can't remember. You had her, and then you had the super mutant, who had a split personality, dog and god.
God.
Yeah.
I've watched plenty of YouTube analysis of him.
Yeah. He was an interesting character.
A lot of this, by the way, folks, if you're listening in or watching this program and you're getting the sense that we're more like advertising for the games than we are analyzing the show.
No, I mean,
it's both.
It's both, but
play the games, man. They're great.
Definitely play the games for sure. I think you'll have a better time with them than the show, in all honesty. Less garbage, less modern garbage being introduced to it.
Yeah.
Definitely more fleshed out storylines.
Yep. So speaking of story, let's.
All I'm going to say is, I'm going to get back to that, but the only thing I was going to say was, because we were talking about the Brotherhood, so we could stay on track with the Brotherhood. Because we were talking about the ethics of the Brotherhood.
Right.
That's kind of where we traveled off. Yeah.
Right. My next note is actually in the Brotherhood area. So go ahead.
All I'm going to say is the Brotherhood were really just meant to seek out like old pre-war tech. That was their whole mission. They strived against the government because the government was, experimenting on our own people, soldiers, POWs, and trying to think, it was, I believe it was Maxim. Could be wrong, but anyhow, he was the founder of the Brotherhood, the guy that I'm talking about. That's kind of how he sought out to found the Brotherhood for what they are, is just order and glory, like in the sense of, not being a government piece of shit, It's basically his morals came into play over his orders. And he said, fuck this. Everybody wants to join me and doesn't agree with this shit. We're going to take the scientists that are doing all this, very bad stuff and lock them and tomb them in this place and leave them for dead and go on our way.
And he had them summarily executed.
Mm-hmm.
The ones he was able to get a hold of, he killed them.
Not all of them, but he did kill the ones he could.
The ones he got his hands on.
Yep.
Now, at the 7-minute mark in the episode, we have another important note for the Brotherhood for my liking here, in that they kind of explain or start to try and loosely explain why this chapter of the Brotherhood might be so much different than what we were expecting out of the Brotherhood. But it comes in the form of their head scribe kind of falling to priestly corruption, which is kind of a lazy and cliched storytelling trope. It's not even a well-written cliche. It's just sort of this power-hungry priest in search of dominion that if he were any kind of actual Brotherhood scribe, he would not be able to rise up the ranks and become like the head of a chapter.
And that's the thing.
It's dripping of having no.
The medieval ranks were only addressed as ranks. It was not like an order of any medieval order. It was a more of a military order in a more modern fashion.
Right. They had ecclesiastical notes and hintings, but throughout the games, they are a paramilitary order first, monastic order second. The showrunners on this program have completely flipped that on its head for this chapter.
They've turned it very ceremonial.
If they were doing it in an attempt to lambast or criticize structured, ordered religious organizations, then fine. But that again goes hand in hand with the whole Hegelian dialectic. It's destroy the concept of the nuclear family, destroy the concept of moral organizations, undermine them, and join the party. The revolution comes first. The issue is not the issue. The revolution is the issue. Kind of horse shit, lens pasting that I have come to abhor in this program.
Yeah.
And it's weird because then less than 2 minutes later, I came upon a visual cue that I thought was brilliant. As much as I'm growling right now about the Order, about the Brotherhood, there was a visual tie-in moment around the 9-minute mark that I thought, okay, I've noticed this now a few times, and it's actually kind of brilliant, kind of genius. It should be lost on nobody that almost every time throughout the show, a Sunset Sarsaparilla ad can be seen somewhere on screen, that there's Cooper, a cowboy western sort. He shows up on screen almost every time you see a billboard or a banner ad for Sunset Sarsaparilla.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the thing about the Brotherhood and the way they're portrayed in this whole thing, I have a lot of issues with that as well. It's just every game that we've ever played of Fallout, and mind you, this is a show of Fallout, according to the title. They are very much a military faction. But the way they're portrayed in the show, it's very medieval, very ceremonial, very, it's very Dark Age.
Yeah, it's ecclesiastical first. It's monastic first, which is not how it was through the games.
No.
And as I recall, all of the kind of leaders of the various chapters that you encounter as you're playing the games, they are military men first.
Mm-hmm.
Even Sarah Lyons, who is your first kind of commanding officer contact in Fallout 3, she is a warrior first. She is a fighter first. Any monastic or ecclesiastical, religious or moral-based kind of foundations of character are secondary to her functions as a soldier. That comes first. Even when you've got Three Dog talking about the good fight and speaking well of the Brotherhood of Steel, it's always couched in what they are doing militarily to secure the capital wastelands and to fight against various raider factions and outfits that would seek to dominate the region.
It's a
this
mix
is
between like soldiers and warriors, but that's about as far as it goes. Like, it's
right. They don't.
you
They
don't
and they
have priests or anything like that.
no. And the distinctions that they make do tend to be along military lines, where you've got it's not expressed, like overtly expressed, but you have your forward bound kind of outgoing warrior types who expand and take on the batches of super mutants throughout the capital waste.
Death claws.
But they're forward operators. And then you have your defensive units, the guys who stick more close to their bunkers. They're there to secure defenses. And you have that distinction, but there's still that it's all militarist. It's military distinction. It's not
holding
distinction
parameters
between-
or perimeters and blockades and whatnot.
right, setting up defense turrets and what have you. It's military style. It's not monastic.
Even the quartermaster that they have, I mean, it's barracks. I mean, it's like, kind of like how they first portrayed the Brotherhood in the beginning scenes. It showed them like a military. But then later on, you're like, where are we going with them?
And right, they deviate from that so quickly.
Yeah.
And speaking of deviations and deviancy, let's move into my next note. At the 13-minute mark, as we present Moldaver at her encampment, her whole El Presidente thing, from soup to nuts, this scene drove me batshit because it reeks of this kind of Castro-style inter-party oligarchic privilege. And it's kind of grotesque because they frame it as if this is a good thing. These are the right people.
Yeah, these are the good
people.
guys. They have the good intentions.
The good guys. Did it escape? Maybe it was just me, but it did not escape my notice that her whole Praetorian Guard there, they were all hair dye colored women.
Yep.
Who looked more like, and I'm gonna delve into territory that may irritate some people who are gonna watch this later. I don't care. They look like a bunch of bull dyke, short hair man haters than actual soldier women.
It looked like a feminist group.
Yes, it looked like these are the kind of neo-Marxist Praetorian Guards who want to just dominate anything and everything they come across.
Yep.
And how fitting is it that they set themselves in complete opposition to the Brotherhood of Steel, a collection of trained, ordained, capable military men, yet they are seen somehow as the equals to soldiers who are trained and flying vertibirds and encased in power armor. How are you supposed to be any kind of match for that kind of organization? It's not going to happen. Right. Quit playing Hegelian bullshit. It makes no sense. How are these people the good guys also when they wholesale slaughtered a bunch of vault dwellers in order to try and gain access to kidnapping a man who was in charge of that vault?
Which were literally a group of raiders.
Right. You slaughtered a bunch of people who had no business being slaughtered. Several of your elite forward operators were huffing on jet or psycho in order to more effectively kill people who had no fighting chance against you.
None.
These are the good guys? Suck my dick.
Yeah. You bring up a very good point with that, especially with them coming into the vault. It's just the moment I seen Moldaver, I didn't like Moldaver.
It's moral relativism because they did what they did for quote unquote the greater good.
Right.
So you're going to excuse wholesale slaughter to try and give, quote unquote, unlimited power and energy to people for free through the wastes. That's moral relativism. That's saying we did what we did for the greater good. That is utilitarianism pushed to the breaking point. That's the trolley problem, but instead of only going off the track to kill one person, you gleefully mow down the first 5 and then have somebody build a U-turn in the tracks up ahead so that you
Not
can
even just
kill the
mow him
last
down.
guy.
I mean, they literally stabbed him to death. I mean, everything. Cutting people apart, sticking a fork in the one chick's eye to, several things. Like, the fact of the matter is, even the matters alone with Monty, with him wiping his dick on the fucking drapes. I mean,
Yeah.
let's be real here. If this is who we're going to consider the good guys, like, what is the good guy?
I question your entire notion of leadership and the idea that Moldaver is somehow some genius leader of the future.
Right. Like, how is Moldaver themselves not questioning their morals and ethics? Like,
right. Like,
like she's just walking by and looking at him like, oh, boys will be boys.
Right.
Like what?
Okay. This dude was your undercover agent to infiltrate into the vault. I believe Volpes and Culta in New Vegas, I believe the term they used for him was frumentari.
Yep.
To brush up against, because frumenta is to rub against or to brush against.
He's the one that meets up with you after Benny.
Right. The term frottage comes from brushing up against things. The frumentari.
That's when you make the ultimate choice between House, the NCR, and the Legion. And when Volpes shows up, he's in a full-on suit and tie and a top, well, not a top hat, but like a little fedora.
Fedora. Yep. So these frumentari, you're telling me Monty was your choice of frumentari for Moldaver, a guy who wipes his dick on a drape? I mean, come on. Oh my God.
Not only that, especially displaying fucking the fact that he's never seen running water before.
Right. Like, okay, so your beautiful fucking utopian vision encampment that you had with your lesbian lover didn't have running water?
Right.
Something doesn't line up here. I have lots of questions, and you people are answering none of them. You're just saying, but good thing. We're for good thing. You're for bad thing.
It's a very big contradiction with Moldaver in that aspect because, as she's shown in like the before the bombs dropped, she's shown as this like anti-capitalism, anti-corporate, anti-vault tech, like her way is the way and no way is anyway. Like it's her way or no way.
Right. And she says, again, I refer back to that conversation that she had with Cooper when she says communist is just a dirty word for people who aren't crazy. Right. Fuck you. Because what you're actually expounding upon or what you're propounding in favor of is death.
Mm-hmm.
Pure death.
We're not all comrades in arms here.
Right. And let's not forget that they don't really explain in any way, shape, or form how it is she was able to survive.
No.
But I have a hypothesis there. I would hypothesize that given that Cooper points out that she got bought out by Vault Tech for millions of dollars, she easily then had the money to pay for a cryo tube in one of Vault Tech's many facilities that would have cryogenic frozen, cryogenics available. Maybe she was in the Commonwealth cryo tube.
Well, same with McLean, the dad.
Right.
Was the underhand assistant to Cooper's wife.
Right, to her.
Yeah, he was like the dry cleaner guy, but like I still think he had a bigger role than just that. Like he was the guy that picked up the dry cleaning.
Right. Back to my notation in the show. They got I've got written down here at the 17-minute and 20-second mark. Bud Askins, who holy shit, when Norm discovers that Vault 31 is being run by a Roomba-style robo-brain with Bud Askinson's brain preserved in it,
Yep.
that was like a lowering of a boom for me. Like, oh, really? I'm kind of disappointed.
I would have been more happier if he was a robo brain or something.
Right, like if he was in a complete suit. But okay, the Roomba, I'll take it. But Bud Askins, when at the 17-minute, 20-second mark, he says, quote, "These are the things that make America great." It felt, to me at least, political. Like there was definitely political messaging here from the show writers. Robco's representative, Mr. House, West Tech, Big Mountain rep, RepCon, all the greats of Fallout being presented in this council room. The whole thing reeks, this scene, it reeks of anti-capitalist propaganda to me. And this is also, I think, the moment, or it comes shortly thereafter, where we have a moment to get to with the whole delivery of the line of war never changes. But they talk about the cryo tubes. And we get into the Buds thing, his elitist program to secure the cryo tubes for people he hand selects as the future of management. I kind of shudder at that. Mm-hmm. But at this point, we also have the writers laying the open-ended experiments in the vault's notion at Barb's feet, at Cooper's wife's feet, when I don't remember any singular person being blamed in the games for allowing this open experimentation idea to take hold. But also, it lays it at the feet of these other corporate heads. Quote, "See, they're all evil and greedy and bad. For me, this was what the writers were doing. They were saying in their own underhanded way, see, all these evil corpos, they're evil, horrible, bad.
Yep.
And using other common double speak, but with an unfortunate thread of truth to it in that, yeah, they were all kind of psychotic in their way. These experiments were awful.
Oh,
we can be in agreement. We can be in agreement on that. But the blame was spread to everybody here, which I don't know if you're familiar with this notion, but when you spread the blame to everybody, you can't point your finger at any one person to blame. And you certainly can't point it at an economic model or system because you're spreading the blame.
Right.
Everyone is responsible. No one is answerable. That's a line I take, by the way, from a book called Woke Inc. by Vivek Ramaswamy. And it's a brilliant point that he makes.
Yeah, I mean, this whole scene that we're about to undergo and talk about, it had some good elements just due to the fact of Mr. House, I think, was done very well. But
oh yeah,
for the rest of them, I mean, I just didn't care about them. But when Mr. House talked, I mean, it was like, whoa. Like, he actually stands out of this whole group. I mean, for obvious reasons, he stands out because of New Vegas. But the same, this is a bunch of suits sitting here talking about the future of Vault Tech and why Bud needs them for the business. Right.
And I will say that, like, of all, in terms of casting, again, whoever was responsible in this program for casting did a brilliant job of picking who would play Mr. House.
For sure.
Because the look of that actor is perfect.
Yeah, I mean, to every detail, that is Mr. House.
Yep.
You can't convince me otherwise.
Now let's get to the moment.
The nitty-gritty.
Makes your blood boil. Kind of makes mine not as bad, but it does. It irk. 23 minutes and 27 seconds in. Quote, we're going to make this happen by dropping the bomb ourselves.
Yeah.
A lot of longtime fans of the Fallout games have for years hypothesized that this was exactly what happened to spark the Great War, the final days. The fact that this was done by Vault-Tec themselves. And then you have the delivery of the most iconic line in the Fallout series. War never changes.
They should have opened the show with that.
They should have. And this line should not have been delivered in the middle of other lines as if it was a cast-off sentiment. This sentiment is central to the entire ethos of the series of games. But it's inserted here into a greater monologue as if it doesn't matter, as if the sentiment means almost nothing.
Especially talking about the discovery of the killing power of man between rock and bone, like it was discussed in Fallout 3.
I love that intro. That
right.
Just perfectly delivered. Can you turn that down?
That's the biggest issue is like with me is like this could have been put in the show in such a better way, and the opportunity is taken and placed in a way where it's no longer as powerful as it could have been.
Right.
We're in the show now. At this point, this part doesn't matter anymore. We already know what's going on. War never changes. We know the horrors of not only the war and the bombs, but the wasteland.
Right.
And all of its, messed up, all the aesthetics of just the wasteland alone and the wars that go on between the wasteland. The fact of the matter is, war never changes. You already know that going through the storyline.
Right.
This is why this should have been a thing way before all
that. And so, hold on. I don't want to spend too much time on that at this.
No. We're not. I mean, that's all I really wanted to say about it. It's just,
and I think
they should have done a better job.
And I think you've got it spot on. Mm-hmm. It should have dropped this line at the beginning of the show.
Very much so.
So we come to another moment, a few moments after that scene, where Maximus is talking to Dane as they're preparing for their assault. And there was a moment here that made me kind of grind my teeth together. Because in this moment, Dane confesses to Maximus that the razor in the boot, that Dane set that up himself. That Dane injured himself, sabotaged himself, because he was terrified to go out in the wilds. He was a coward.
Mm-hmm.
He was too afraid. And rather than just coming out and telling their superiors, hey, I don't feel like I'm ready for this. I don't think I'm the right choice. Rather than doing that, Dane put a razor in, I'm just going to say in her boot to injure and sabotage herself without telling anybody what was going on, allowing potential blame to be laid at the feet of one of her brothers in arms, coming forward at no point to clarify the innocence of anyone who might be blamed for this sabotage. That is pure cowardice. And I'm sorry, if one of the senior members of that chapter of the Brotherhood had overheard that, hey, I set myself up for failure and I let you get blamed for it, that should have ended with a bullet in her head.
She would have been backhanded by a power armor gauntlet, like completely. The whole skull just caved in, like
the blood and guts trait would have been selected at character creation.
bloody mess.
Yeah, the bloody
right
mess.
There.
Backhand with a power fist 9,000. End of argument. And no one can convince me.
Oh yeah, bang!
Yo, kablam! Fisto should have been brought in for that scene.
Mm-hmm. I mean, honestly, if it were me, Maximus, I would have been like, "Oh, really? Hey, hey, Knight."
How does Maximus not put a bullet in her skull at that point? Like,
right.
I was your bro. I was frustrated that you got picked over me, but I was ultimately okay and happy for you that you would have gone out. Yes, I admit I wanted to see you fail, but you set me up. You set me up to be almost terrorized and interrogated, maybe executed for your cowardice.
And yeah, it's untelling what they would have done to you with power armor on.
I could have almost given Maximus a point in the direction of being redeemed as a character if he had decided.
If he had the balls to actually, like, you know, like, yeah, you're the one that did that? Okay.
Right. Clocker one, at least, for God's sake.
Yeah, I mean, at least put one in her face, man.
So, yeah, I'm just building up so much irritation with the show at this point. It gets worse, if at all possible.
So, even in the scene that we're talking about now, and as they're grabbing the armaments for this raid, I'm looking at all sorts of guns. All sorts of rifles and everything. Why do they all have handguns? Besides the guys in armor.
Makes no sense.
None. And the guys that they're fighting have fucking rifles and machine guns and rocket launchers.
Yep. Ground-to-air missiles.
And submachine guns and shit. Like, even AA guns and stuff.
Yep. And now we'll get to that battle sequence in just a minute.
I want to talk about that so bad.
The next scene. Let me get through this next scene, because while for you and I that's going to be big, this next scene for me was also huge, and I imagine that you might follow along with me and agree here. I don't know. We'll see in a moment. The next sequence that for me took big notation. All of this exposition from Moldaver, as she's explaining what happened at Shady Sands to Lucy, who her father is, and what happened between them, and all of that, and what she's aiming for with the cold fusion and what have you. But this is a woman whose group committed wholesale slaughter against the people who Lucy was born around and grew up with. Lucy doesn't question her at all? Really? There's no questions from Moldaver about how she could possibly know all this stuff about her father, how she could know about cold fusion, about why she had kept Rose around as an armless ghoul / pet or prop, which is disgusting in its own right. Not only
so bad,
not only biologically disgusting, but how can you convince these people who are siding with you, these Praetorian guards, that this is a good idea, that this is humane? If you're so worried about the future of humanity and giving them resources to help them survive, maybe you could, I don't know, invest in a small bit of mercy to put a bullet in the brain of this thing that is no longer the woman that you purportedly fell in love with back when she was still human. Before she
not only that, why would you show that off to the daughter?
Right. Like, how did you expect this to not end with Lucy putting a bullet in your skull? And for Lucy's character, why didn't she?
Right.
Why would she buy into all of the horse shit being told to her by this absolute stranger whose only interaction with Lucy to date has been to butcher her neighbors, to kidnap her father, and to leave her for dead? Why would you sit there and listen to this woman prattle on? It makes no sense. especially given that we're supposed to believe that Lucy has grown as a character in the Wasteland, dealing with all this shit that she has dealt with. By now, she should have had the Cooper response of, put a bullet in this woman's brain.
Not only that, it brings me back to Fallout 4 when Kellogg kills your wife after, opening up the cryo pods. That very moment when I met Kellogg, I wanted to kill Kellogg.
Right. That should be your natural reaction.
Like that, that's the antagonist buildup. The same that should have been executed with Moldaver.
Yes.
The moment I met Kellogg, I wanted to kill Kellogg.
How?
Why did Lucy not want to kill Moldaver at that very moment?
And she should have at least tried.
Right.
I'm sorry. At this point, this was such a huge, for me, diminution of character for Lucy. So antithetical to the purported character growth that these writers are supposed to be convincing me has taken place over the course of these 8 episodes. It completely breaks every world building conceit that they have tried to lean into from the beginning to the current moment of the show, that I have to clap my hands and say, fuck you, I'm out. Everyone who was writing on this show, with maybe 1 or 2 exceptions, should be fired and never given the chance to adapt anything ever again, because they're a bunch of ideological dipshits who have no concept of how to properly construct a character or a narrative in a way that is both informative and entertaining without being ham-fisted ideological preaching.
100%. And the empathy is so off. Like the rationalization of the character alone, like we just got done saying. The moment I met Kellogg at the very beginning of the game, he shoots your wife right in front of you and says, well, at least we still got a backup. Already gives you the incentive to kill the motherfucker, right? So she took her dad away from her, along with killing friends and whatnot, and she's not feeling the bloodlust to put a bullet in her head or rip her head off. Like, I just... How are you not angry? How are you not pissed off? Don't get me wrong. The fact that she did listen to her and talk about all the things that had happened and why, that ghoul was her mom and that's how big of a monster her dad was. Yeah, I mean, obviously you're building an arc for a new villain. Sure. But I still would have killed her regardless. Because she's just as big a piece of shit, as bad as her own dad is. Like, she's no better than her dad.
No, and by any estimation, leagues and light years worse. Give me one moment, brother. I think little miss needs to go down for her nap, so I'm going to get her a bottle and get her laid down.
Okay.
I'm going to be off here for a minute while I contend with that.
We're fixing to wrap this up too, so.
Okay.
Well, I don't know how much, what time we're working with here, but I know we're getting to that point of the show.
Just give me 1 minute. I'll get her bottle set up. And
I do need to make that announcement at the end too. We talked about.
All right.
About the Discord.
Yes, by all means. Give me 1 minute.
For those of you who don't know, I've had to deal with some issues recently with Discord, and not very happy about it, but it's out of my control at this point in time. But there's a thing going around. I'll get into it here momentarily. But I do think everybody needs to know about it. And to stay vigilant, stay safe, and keep your eyes open for any particular unnatural occurrences with possible friends who might have been compromised, such as myself. And we'll get into that later on, but it's definitely a big announcement I do want to go over. aside from that, we're still talking about Fallout. Just the morals of Lucy, which we're still in a moment of I guess questioning, like a moment of being lost, just in the sense of rationalization of the character, like morals and even a remote sense of revenge, you know. Because to me, it's only natural for a character to feel that way after watching their own people being slaughtered.
Right. Like this was, these were the people of her tribe, as it were,
Right.
and they got just completely not wiped out completely, because
A
obviously
good majority of them did.
a lot of them, yes, a ton of people got slaughtered and injured permanently in that.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of slaughters, shall we discuss just how badly Moldaver's group should have logically been wiped off the face of the planet?
Yeah. So this whole battle sequence that we're about to get into, where to begin?
I want to begin, if I may, with the vertibirds coming toward the encampment, because we are shown that these NCR remnants, which
I don't even think they're
I already
NCR remnants.
no, but Moldaver is flying the NCR flag in the background.
Right.
And I believe that the showrunners are trying to imply that she wants to rekindle the NCR, the New California Republic.
Mm-hmm.
But my buddy at work, and you and I joked about this off camera at one point.
We did.
And I said that the joke for me, at least, would be, yeah, NCR makes sense. Neo-communist revolutionaries is what these fucking
Very
people
much
are.
so.
The letters still work, but they show that these people in their encampment have a ground-to-air missile defense system. Okay.
But here's the thing, though. Even though they had that, I don't mean to cut off, but here's my biggest problem. Even if they didn't have that, what's not to say that they still don't have AA capabilities that aren't, plugged up to a big power source that are automated. We're talking just straight up shoulder fired rocket launchers or AA guns or
right.
just things like that. The simple fact of the matter is, why did they fly so many fucking vertibirds into their own death? You would have never done that militaristically. You would have got out at a certain point, insertion point,
right?
Dropped people off, and then they would have moved up to the position.
Right. That's definitely one take for it. Slightly different than my question, which was going to be, at what point would any of Moldaver's people have had training in the use of anti-aircraft weaponry?
Right.
At what point can you reasonably suggest that there would have been a rationale behind them training in utilizing these weapon systems? To say nothing of securing the ammunition for them. Where the hell were your resources? You're not exactly showing us in any way, shape, or form that this tiny faction of commies that you have gathered to yourselves have access to the materials required to put up this kind of defense.
Right.
The world building conceits as they have laid them out thus far don't match up. This is just piss poor. We need it to happen. So make it happen. Plot armor.
We need a big battle to happen. We're not sure how or why they gathered the resources they did or where they got them from. They just had them.
Right.
And they were handed all these big guns and rifles and machine guns.
Oh.
And you got the initiates coming in with fucking handguns.
Right. And it leads to it folds then into what you were saying in that why after one vertibird gets taken down, would they not hang back or double back,
Evasive
regroup,
maneuvers.
drop in, insert. Right. Utilize that militaristic training and familiarity with combat. That is the entire focus of your organization's background.
Since they were using the Fallout 4 vertibirds, they have guns in the front of them. Why aren't they shooting?
Right. Even more
like in the front of the cockpit, there are 2 guns under the cockpit. Why are they not shooting in that direction to suppress the enemy?
Right. Or strafe and have a knight with a Gatling laser or Gatling gun fucking strafe fire that entire anti-aircraft embankment that they've got. No,
which they did have the one they kind of did like the side swipe with the minigun that Maximus and Dane were on. Like they kind of pulled the whole Black Hawk move on it. They kind of swiped over to the side and he started engaging. But like, I was like, okay, but why is that minigun shooting so slow? Like that is not the proper rate of fire for this thing. It's going boop, 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 boop. I'm like, what is that thing?
And in terms of once they were close enough to start deploying and entering on foot, why in the name of all that is holy would you send your soldiers in a mixed wave? Why would you not put your T-60 power armor soldiers into a spear wedge infiltration formation? Since there's not a lot of small arms that are going to get through that armor, they should have done a spear wedge formation to march like a death engine into this encampment. Period. Let the squires or the unarmored soldiers flank in from a side or follow behind as a cleanup crew.
Why did they not use grenades? Why didn't they throw a volley of grenades?
Right. You have all this equipment. You have all this gear. You have material.
I mean, grenades are literally meant to scatter people. Like, that's the whole point. It breaks morale.
And they don't do it.
No, they don't do nothing.
And then there's one really cool bit in the sequencing here with Cooper, who, knowing the flaws and the shortcomings of the power armor.
With the welding.
Right. I have a love-hate relationship with this combat sequence.
I do too.
Because
we're definitely going to be in agreement on this one.
While I love that they show his familiarity with the equipment and his skill, his repertoire of combat skills in dealing with people who initially might visibly outmatch him and outpace him. Turning off the lights is only going to work if none of these soldiers in the power armor do the click to turn on night vision mode that we all know is available.
They also have flashlights too.
Flashlights, chest-mounted flashlights, or not Pip-Boy, but
they don't have Pip-Boys, but the armor itself does have lights that do work.
The armor itself is equipped with floodlighting capacity to illuminate the target area. You're going to tell me that they all forgot at the same time how to light up the area?
Not only that, the conveniently placed fusion core that was powering the place.
Yeah. God.
It was right there where he was standing the whole time.
Right. Like, okay, he had arrived ahead of them, clearly.
And it just happened to become so inherently dark.
Which, and again, he, as a bounty hunter and as a consummate survival fighter, I'm willing to grant a little bit of leeway, a little bit of license to him being familiar enough to set up that entrapment. However, the fact that he didn't deploy any actual traps or pre-located weaponry to utilize as he moved around these guys We saw what Frank Castle was able to do in the Netflix adaptation of Punisher in episode 8 of.
But I mean, to be fair,
10.
this wasn't really like a place he inhabited, though. So
no, but given how quickly he could have set up, we don't know how long he was there ahead of them. We've got no idea. They don't really present how long he had to be there in advance.
I just think it's fair to assume, at least with all the guards being mowed down by the Knights, is he happened to just show up right there? Because there were a lot of military presence outside. Like, you know, so you had all the, and, you know, I guess the Neo-California revolutionaries and the initiates colliding, you know, the two flags going in the middle. And, you know, I was irritated with some of these guys taking down people in armor. Like, they were grabbing them in like a big group. I'm like, what the fuck is this? Like,
okay, swarm mentality only goes so far. When somebody in that power armor can lift up a boulder and throw it like a pebble, they should be able to reach up, grab one of these guys, just squish.
Even then, I mean, just do a good swing and they'd all fly off them.
Right. Especially since these are the kind of people who eat a whole lot of soy and don't have enough protein in their diet to develop the muscles to hang on for dear life. I'm just joking there.
But the simple fact is, the one guy reached in with a Tommy gun and started shooting at the neck plate of the one and happened to kill him with a 45 calibered submachine gun with this heavy plated armored suit. I'm sorry, but I don't think there's a breaching point of where that caliber would have like penetrated.
Right.
I don't care how many rounds you would have shot through there.
Right, especially when we've already got the world building conceit that Cooper knows where the weakness is because he wore the armor before. You mean to tell me these commies somehow had insider information on the power armor? I call bullshit. Mm-hmm. I from top to bottom, I call bullshit.
100%.
Now we're coming to the end of that sequence, and in the end, the Brotherhood kind of wins the ultimate. You know,
to a degree until Cooper showed up.
Moldaver stumbles dying back into the control room. Mm-hmm. Her people are likewise wiped out.
No laser gun in hand, mind you.
Her desire to provide free, limitless power to the region is reminiscent to me more of what a follower of the apocalypse might have wanted.
Oh, for sure.
You know, that would make almost more sense.
They were more of a humanitarian.
Right. Way more humanitarian than this fucking commie.
100%.
And for Dane to then come into the chamber.
Children of the Cathedral were the same way, except they were trying to bring people into the ranks of the Unity.
Right. But then when Dane comes in and like gives kill credit to Maximus out of, I don't know, some kind of guilt trip or desire to see him do what she couldn't do, for getting blamed for her self-inflicted hobbling. You know, they say hell is getting exactly what you wish for. And this is one of those rare moments where you can kind of see the actor who's playing Maximus. He puts on this face like, oh shit, I'm getting what I wanted all along, to be named a knight, to be named glorious, to be given kudos. But it's given to him when he doesn't deserve it.
Mm-hmm.
He got knocked clean by Lucy's dad. He didn't kill most. He is once again being given accolades and praise for something he didn't do. And in a moment where he's confronted with his brethren and he has the opportunity to clarify and say, I didn't do this. Dane is lying to you again. Does he step up and do the honorable thing? No, because he's too much of a bleak coward to do the right thing. But somehow we are left to think, well, with Moldaver's dying line to him, what will your precious brotherhood do with unlimited power? Lady, look at what you were willing to do for that power.
Right.
And while I think that she is a grotesque human being and character, she's in no position to question the ethics or morals of the Brotherhood of Steel, even though this particular chapter is clearly corrupted by its lead scribe or its lead priest.
I'll grant them
That's
that they're
not-
assholes, but they're not that type of asshole.
Right. They're not a bunch of conquerors. And even if
Or
they,
raiders,
even
even.
if this particular faction was known to Moldaver to be a corruption, how would she have known that? That's never explained. That's never explored in any way, shape, or form. It's commie gobbledygook, to quote Norm Macdonald, or not Norm Macdonald. Norm Macdonald.
Tom McDonald.
Yeah, it's commie gobbledygook. So my last observation, I really kind of liked that as Cooper and Lucy and the dog are walking away, that there's kind of this Three's Company vibe to it. It was a good fit for the Ink Spots song, My Shadow, My Echo, and Me. Although who is which, who's the shadow, who's the echo, who's supposed to be the character who is me, is kind of left up in the air as a question.
I think I know who.
I would personally.
Shadow
Well,
would be Cooper.
Okay.
Echo, I would have to say no. Yeah, Shadow would be Cooper. Echo, I think, would have been the dog, and me being Lucy.
I've got a slightly different take. I pegged my shadow as the dog meat, because oftentimes in old Western films or books, people who are describing their hunting dog say, "Oh yeah, he's shadowing me. He's my shadow. He's always right there by my feet." My echo, I would say, would be Lucy, because she is a call to the past of what he had once been as a human being. And me being Cooper, giving the song its point of view.
That
His
makes
shadow
sense.
his echo is Lucy, and he is the point of view. Again, there was a Sunset Sarsaparilla sign on the side of the screen, which also contributed to my thinking that's where the perspective is from.
Yeah.
In the end, I thought, Amazon and Bethesda, they had a chance at something that was really could have been beautiful. There's obviously deeply talented visual artists involved in the production,
as well as art concept and what. Yeah.
Right, like visually, audibly, some of the people working on this show should be lauded for their efforts. But the writing staff and the showrunners, no, just no. I can't.
To me, it's
a
the
shame.
communist stuff that they put in to overshadow the capitalism stuff.
Oh, right, overt messaging.
You don't see both sides.
The message. It's so blatant. I don't know how anybody could have missed it. Which is why the Critical Drinker, who is a pretty well known,
I'm aware of the Critical
YouTube
Drinker.
It's a Gundam, and Reptarus on Ice, and Shadiversity were the primary channels that I turned to compare my own notes and takeaway when I was done with the show. I wanted to see what they thought of it. Critical Drinker really disappointed me. Massively disappointed me, because he said it was a good time. He enjoyed the show. He only did like a 9-minute review, went into no details, offered no actual critical analysis of the program. And I found myself wondering, did the guy play the games? Probably not. And I'm willing to give a little bit of leeway there. But I want folks to bear in mind only a little bit of leeway, because my depth of familiarity with the source material is nowhere near what Brother Cortex's familiarity with the material is.
It's very painful to watch this show.
Yeah. at the end of the day, even with my limited, only maybe a third of familiarity with the source material, even I can't stand it.
There's a lot of dark
Just
elements that could have been brought up into the show itself, because I'm going to be real, like Fallout 1 and 2, especially 2, there are multiple moments that are not happy. There's a literal moment where, if you so choose to, you can join a faction of slavers and go from settlement to settlement, encampment to encampment or camps, tribes, and kill off people and enslave the entire tribe, to watching a family getting gunned down by Frank Corrigan and a couple of Enclave soldiers, to, I mean, there's several moments in Fallout that are not sunshine and Nuka-Cola Quantum.
Right. It's not puppy dog kisses and unicorn
No.
farts.
You have the couple of moments where it is goofy, but this is a wasteland. The people are
Right.
dying countlessly and horrifically. I mean, it's just the way everything's portrayed, and it could be portrayed a lot better. And I think Nuka Break really did a lot better job for being a fan project compared to I want to say a couple, I don't even know how much the budget was for the Fallout show, but I'm sure it was enormous. And for the simple fact of the budget between that and Nuka Break speaks volumes.
Yeah. Well, I can give you really quick, because I had it jotted down. All right. Amazon Studios and Bethesda Productions, as well as Kilter Studio Productions, utilized an operating budget on average. This is just average cost per episode, was $17.5 million per episode.
Oh my God.
Per episode.
There's no excuse.
Now,
There's
the Beast
no
of
excuse.
the Beast of Bezos has more than enough money to shake that off and to say it was worth it. But for what?
Right.
For what? What are you getting out of this? What I'm getting is this was just one great big advertisement for communism. At the end of the day, what started off as a very promising pilot episode, which I rated at around an 8.5 out of 10. When I look at the series as a whole, season 2 will eventually come. They've already greenlit it. It's in production right now. It's being made. And I had wanted, given the fact that there's obvious heavy-handed signs that they're going to include a lot of New Vegas stuff, which should entice me as a big fan of New Vegas. It should entice me, but it doesn't.
Mm-mm.
Not when I set it against the backdrop of what this show devolved into. If I were to rank this series, season 1 of Fallout, on a scale of 1 to 10, as a literary analyst, I give the show a 3 out of 10. A 3. And I only granted that 3 because the visual audio production quality was top notch. A handful of symbolic moments with subtle storytelling notes were expertly done and crafted. But everything else fails. Every other element of it fails. Now, Shadiversity's review ended up ultimately being kind of relatively close to my own summarized takeaway. But I had a little bit of a grumble too with them in that there were several big moments that they just seemed to skip over or that they didn't notice. And I'm sorry, but aren't you guys supposed to be the fucking experts in media critique and analysis? How are you letting a dipshit nobody like me come up behind you guys and smack you upside the heads and say, how did you miss this?
Especially every detail we've went into. And we've been pretty well in depth with everything that we've went into. From the guns to just the characters to the whole thing.
We've spent as much time analyzing this program as its total runtime. Do you realize that?
Yeah. My score was a little different with the show. Yours was a 3 out of 10. And I'm going to explain why mine is a 4 out of 10.
Okay.
Cooper. Cooper is what kept me watching the show. Only reason. There was no other reason for me to want to watch the show.
He's your what might be referred to as he's your saving grace for the show.
Very much so. He carried the show on his shoulders. Because I was always looking forward to what's he going to say next? What's he going to do next? What's this crazy asshole going to do? I'm dying to know. He's already spontaneous. You know? And I already love the actor, so there's my bias for that. But all in all, I didn't find Lucy or Maximus nearly as interesting as I did Cooper.
Right.
Because he had at least the backstory of who he was and how he became the ghoul. Right. And, you know, there's the history of behind this, like, behind the bombs, if we will, you know. And just, like, the corporate jump, you know, the corporate shit that he had to go through with his wife, which I have a theory, by the way, about, what was her name? Barb?
Yeah, his wife, Barb.
I have a theory that Barb is Betty.
I'm not sure because I thought we saw Betty in the office talking to McLean when Cooper met her. I thought Cooper met Betty in her office.
Maybe so, but I've heard that theory, the same theory that I just said about Betty being Barb from other people in comments. So I'm just saying it's a theory, though. I mean, that could change, you know, it could be determined.
I could be misremembering. That's possible.
You know, we also were led to believe that the dad, you know, was a good guy until we found out how shitty he was and how he nuked Shady Sands.
Okay. Can we touch upon that for a moment?
Yeah.
Okay. You mean to tell me that this guy was so insecure that in order to get revenge on Moldaver for luring his wife away into this outworld, upper surface level life, that he was so vindictive about her being pulled away and his children being pulled away that he would nuke an entire settlement? How little do the showrunners and writers, how little do they think of your average man?
Right. And that's another thing, like you just brought up. How they've now painted this bad guy as a strong white guy who will literally look at somebody like Chet as a coward, but, you know, had these evil intentions, who seemed to be a good guy, is now this bad guy telling Lucy, you won't hurt me. But, like, the way I see it now is now we're going after the white guy. He's now the villain.
Whereas my take is somewhat parallel, slightly different. It's Dad is bad. Because now Lucy is going to buy wholesale into the resentment arc against her father that Moldaver layered into her brain. A rant, a ramble that she did not stop to pause to consider. Well, this lady's telling me all this stuff about my dad. This lady who led a wholesale slaughter of my tribe.
Right.
Why should I believe her for one fucking moment? But she
that
does.
too. I'm just saying, like my whole thing is, we have the diverse cast of our characters. Okay. The only white guy that I seen who was a strong male was Chet, who happened to be a white character. Now we have this bad white guy who is now the center of the attention of being the antagonist now, who happened to nuke Shady Sands, which happened to be Maximus's home, which I'm still trying to figure out how he didn't become a ghoul, considering the vent was open.
Yeah, we were talking a little bit about this last time.
Yeah. I don't want to get into a giant thing about it, but the fact of the matter is, I feel like there's there's some signaling into that when it comes to the politics that were already put into this with the whole communist ordeal. Because you had already made the observation of how Moldaver's army was these like brutish women, brutish dykes, if you will.
Yeah.
Like, it speaks for itself.
You realize that this stream is going to get like completely thrown down the algorithmic route.
Yeah, it will. But you know what? It's going to be out there. I don't care.
Naughty speak. Yeah, fuck it. Let's go ahead whole hog into this nonsense. It is socio-political messaging in this program was the entire point. Ultimately, it felt like by the time it was all said and done. Hey, buddy, here you go. There you are. There you go, buddy. You want butter?
I'm just going to make a brief comparison, but it kind of draws into Modern Warfare 2, the remake, where they remade the game and they redid the characters, right? Now, mind you, Captain Price, Gaz, Soap, it was all a bunch of British SAS white guys that were in this team. In Modern Warfare 1 and 2, well, it's all three games, but Modern Warfare 1, before the remake, Gaz was a white guy. In Modern Warfare, the remake, he was a black guy. Okay. Now, mind you, you got to play as Task Force 141 and all that, go through all the missions. And as you get to Modern Warfare 2, as it started to become more woke, the only bad guys were white Americans. And they only happen to be white American men.
Which for the current crop of games and the people making them seems to go hand in hand and make perfect sense.
Right. So they wanted to play it off as, oh, well, they're using nuclear American assets and they handed them off to the this insurgent group that was fighting a counter-terrorist or a terrorist group, and they were like the counter-terrorists. And, that's all well and good, but what happened, we were trying to find Makarov and, the real bad guys, which, don't get me wrong, General Shepard was a bad guy in Modern Warfare 2, but the way they diversified the characters for a modern audience, yeah, is what really bothered me. Is like you're only doing this to fit a modern audience. You're not doing it out of the sake of the characters.
No, it's not for the actual narrative.
And that's kind of what I'm getting at with the Fallout show here. Is you notice how all these other characters in the show, I mean, aside from Lucy, like they're all diversified. Now that we had Moldaver, which they wanted us to somewhat rationalize with and why she did what she did, and now we have Big Bad Daddy who nuked Shady Sands, who happens to all of a sudden be a white guy antagonist now. And we're all like, fuck you to him because he nuked Shady Sands and did what he did to Maximus. Even though I still don't empathize with Maximus. I still don't like him.
Nope, not in any way, shape, or form. Nope.
But that's my biggest problem with it is like now you have him as the antagonist. And he's damn near almost like the only white guy that I've seen in the show, aside from a few Raiders or so. Or maybe a mutant overseer.
Right. Although, would he be green? Anyway. Or no, orange, because remember the light that was hanging over his head, the orangish hue? Mm-hmm. When I said that last time, I wanted to double check, make sure I wasn't misremembering. So I went back and I found that spot in my notes where she's talking to him in his office. I was not wrong. That bulb has an orangish filter or hue to it to cast an orange light on him. Orange man bad. It was so overt. The second time looking back at it, I'm like, oh, fuck you people.
It might be hypothetical with what I'm saying as far as Hank, but I don't think it's very far off.
No.
Given everything that we've been given thus far.
Right. And while I tend to lean more towards the idea that they're doing the whole dad is bad, patriarchy bad kind of angle.
I believe there's more to it than just that.
Right. But they fit together.
I'm sure it does fit together for sure. Because think about the modern teenager, the modern, daddy's girl. They grow up, they rebel.
Right. And they become resentful of their fathers. It's weird, too, in that Lucy is initially introduced to us in the show. And bear with me.
Almost as a big goody two shoes.
This is some weird kind of mythology stuff I'm going to dive into a little bit. She is introduced as the archetypal princess.
Mm-hmm.
Think about it. Her dad is the overseer.
Yeah.
In mythology, king. What kind of king? Well, she says that he's great with machines and robotics and science. In mythology, this would be akin to being a witch king whose princess daughter tends to rebel by utilizing her own witchcraft or sorcery skills to ultimately overthrow Daddy Dearest in a lot of those old Celtic lore and legends. It's a perfect fit to overlay that mythological framework, but they forgot something. They forgot that in each one of those instances of legend, the Witch King was presented from the word go as a villain, as a bad person. And the princess of the Witch King is presented in most of those stories as not being much better. Here, we have this Witch King presented as a likable guy, a good family man, who they later on subvert and show to be a resentful, power-hungry minion of Vault-Tec and their future aims for the world as it will be developed. And Lucy is expected to rebel against him because dad is bad.
Right.
They want to use this mythological framework and carry none of the actual technique of narrative that's supposed to accompany it.
Yeah,
for people who bitch colonizers, they certainly love to colonize and take over everything in front of us.
And I was going to ask you about that, about the guy that was obviously a native. Like, was that part of it too? Yeah, White Knife. I couldn't remember his name, but I almost feel like that was a part of it too. He played in Reservation Dogs, I believe.
Okay.
Because it's a native show, but the fact of the matter is, I feel like they put him in this group because, again, he's another diverse actor, so he fits the role of this group. Because if you look at this group, the group that Cooper walks into in Moldaver, it's a giant, diverse group of people. A very giant, diverse group of people, and not in the sense of all men, like we were talking about. I mean, it's like a mix of women and, you know,
right,
almost like a 50s or 60s vibe Antifa almost.
Yeah,
that's what I got from it.
One thing the only way I'm going to kind of take a step back in that is to kind of overlay a fit with a historical note and a historical context. In that, in the 1940s and 50s, this has been talked about amongst various people who I work with. I work at a Native American owned and operated reservation casino. And there are a number of people in management and supervisory roles who are themselves Native American and who have talked
widely known.
Right. What they have talked about is that, and this is something that I touched base with a couple of them, just asking about their culture, their history, and especially when it came to things like the Red Scare and World War II and the aftermath of World War II. There were a handful of Native American tribes who were apparently very empathetic to the idea of socialism or communism, in that they believed in fostering the community and small enclaves or tribes working towards mutually assured benefit. But what was clarified to me was that those individuals who began with a sense of empathy towards the ideology of communism ultimately ended up breaking away from it because they believed it should only be utilized in small familial tribal settings, that it could not scale up because there were tribes in the 16 and 1700s who tried to expand and dominate other tribes and carry out that kind of mentality, but it didn't work, so they abandoned it. Because when you try to apply that kind of ideology or methodology to a large group, like over 100 people, it falls apart due to the nature of the corrupting influence of socialistic practices. It doesn't work, so they abandoned it. So for Charlie Whiteknife to be so whole hog invested in the ideology on a small scale might make sense. He might be empathetic because there were Native Americans at that time who were empathetic to the notion, but who ultimately learned it doesn't work at scale.
I mean, I agree in that aspect, I guess, but like, I guess just like with like the writing that we've seen that far, it just seemed to fit.
Right. And that's why I'm saying, like, there was a historical explanation for why a character who is a Native American in the show to be portrayed as being sympathetic to that cause.
I mean, like you said, that makes sense, from that aspect.
Yeah, that's one of those things where there's one or two people in that writer's room who know what they're doing. If I could get their names and pluck them out of that group, it'd be great. Give them something.
Yeah, I mean, it's just that's all I had to really say about that. It's just like, I don't. There was a lot of signaling and messaging in the show that clearly pointed out, "Oh, America bad, America bad."
Oh, constantly.
I'm not saying that obviously because Enclave, that pretty much stems from America. That it built into what the Enclave is. The fact of the matter is, where was the counter to it? where was the other side of the story being spilled out?
Right. There was no balance.
There was no balance, right? And that was my biggest gripe on that. Is just there's too much communist signaling in the show and messaging.
And it's so overt by the time it's all said and done that you can't avoid it. You can't convince me that wasn't part of the overall play. I won't believe you.
That and the
and
NCR.
For anybody who tells me, oh, that's not what they were doing, I have a notebook and a half of notes saying you're wrong.
That and just how the NCR was portrayed in this.
Neo-commie revolutionaries, man. I'm telling you.
It was nowhere near what the NCR should have been.
Yeah.
And the fact that they even draped the NCR flag over them into this battle was such a slap in the face to New Vegas players.
Oh, yeah. They were wearing it as a skin suit.
Right. It was just for the simple fact it was there and they picked it up.
Shall we start in our wrap up to kind of close things down, brother?
Sure.
I gotta get going.
I just want to get into the announcement of what I need to get into for that. For any of those who watching, which I did see the number go up a few times. I think we had like 4 people in here at one point. So I know people are watching. To any of you guys who have me on Discord or are on Discord, please be aware there is a scam going around. And if you have a friend who is reaching out to you out of the blue, asking you to, like, basically reaching out and saying that they are sorry for accidentally reporting you, and they give you a screenshot of an email, please do not respond to them and report them immediately. They are there to scam you. Their account has been compromised, as well as mine. And the scam is going absolutely rampant right now, from what I've read. They compromise you by telling you that somebody has falsely reported you, and they refer you to a fake bot, which has a verified tag on it, like a Discord support. They refer to you with a validation email to replace your own email to then hijack your account. And it's going around very rampant. So, as far as Discord support, you're going to be out of luck. That much I am going to tell you, especially with Twitter. I'm going to say this especially. Do not, by any circumstances, ask for help for your lost account. There are many scammers out there that are trying to take your money.
Yep.
And refer to it as money for their tools or software.
Yep. Those are not the droids you're looking for.
No. This is in your best interest. Please stay away from this scam. If anybody reaches out to you and the messages seem weird and has anything to do with money, leave it alone and block them and report them. That is all I have to say for that. I could go on a rant, but I'm not going to. I'm already pissed off enough with Discord. But that's all I got to say about that.
And I wish that I could recommend using Gilded as an alternative, but since they're owned by Roblox and now you have to have a Roblox account in order to sign into your fucking Gilded, I said, no, you can eat my shit on a cooled plate from the fridge. Thank you very much. I'd rather do that than I'd rather hover, squat, and coil one out onto a refrigerated plate than sign up for Roblox. Go away. It's unfortunate because Discord is one of the better tools for connecting with people that does not rely entirely on some other platform of its own. So this happening is a kick in the nuts, especially for
very
people
much so.
who are gamers and use Discord as a place to come together.
As well as even from a business standpoint, if you happen to run any sort of business on a Discord, it could be like absolutely crippling, for a livelihood.
This could wipe some people out who rely on Discord as their method for making a living.
Mm-hmm.
They're completely boned. I thankfully am not in such a position because, frankly, I've never been in such a position. I may be a creative individual, but I've never had enough success in any methodology of creativity online to be able to lean into that sort of thing. I just work a regular day job, which, believe it or not, grants me certain freedoms that I wouldn't have if I was lashed to one specific platform or another. Believe it or not, being a normie has its benefits.
This whole thing, like I said, if anybody's coming to you on Twitter, if you even go to Twitter for extra support to, I guess get like an edge because the Discord support's not, answering your tickets that you put in, please do not do that unless it's official Discord. Unless you're responding to official Discord Twitters, do not go to any consultants telling you if they can get your account. They're simply there to take your money.
Yep. Just like other consultants.
And the only reason why I'm saying that is I happen to test this theory out. I didn't pay any money, but every result ended with, well, there's the matter of the fee. There's the matter of this. There's the matter of the tools, the software. And there's the hefty fee of $70 to $80 that they want from you in order to proceed to get your account back within 20 minutes. It's bullshit. Keep your money, and worst case scenario, make a new account.
Right. And this is one of those things where it is unfortunate because Discord, its administration uses kind of an outdated email ticket system in order to respond to technical grievances or issues.
It's so bad.
It's slow, but even though it's slow, I would say stick to the slow pace process because it's going to be better than getting scammed out of a bunch of money.
Yeah, at best, I mean, as bad as it sounds, but at best, at the same time, that's probably going to be your only option. Do not go for any outside sources for help because they are going to scam you out of your money. And dude, every Discord support that I've looked at on Twitter is riddled with these people, these accounts. One of these accounts had I think 700 followers, and they were all like NFT accounts. I'm like, yeah, because that's not red flaggish.
That's the biggest red flag you can get. That's like flying the communist Chinese flag, red flag.
That's all I'm going to say about it. Just please be vigilant and stick to the official Discord support. As sucky as it is, that is your best option. Yep. That's all I got to say. But I feel like I should get that out there. I'm also going to put a community post on my YouTube because I've had people reach out to me saying that they've been reached out to through my Discord. It's not me.
So, back quickly onto wrapping up where I'm going to finally wrap it all together for the deep dive.
We should ask what we're going to do Friday, if you're available Friday.
I should be available Friday. Question now is, now that we're kind of wrapped up here on Fallout, what comes next?
Yeah.
Well, I do know that there is a short film that I would love to discuss with you. It just came to my attention the other day.
Should I watch it off stream and then come back to it, or should we watch together? How do you want to proceed with that?
Well, this is one where, honestly, I think you should watch it beforehand, and then we can kind of watch it with the audience together, because it's only a 12-minute short film.
Okay.
But it is just so super. It's masterful work, and it's not paranormal. It's not supernatural. It's not the kind of thing that you and I usually dive into. But I'm currently. I started this morning writing kind of a deeper analysis of it, but it's the kind of thing I think would be right up your alley.
Okay.
It's a film it's a short film called Regulation from a channel called Dust.
Regulations Dust.
Yeah, I will, if necessary, I'll send you a link later on to find it. This thing is, it's dystopian in its ultimate messaging, but it is deeply fascinating to me, at least. And given where you and I tend to see,
Is it just Regulation? Because I see Dust as the YouTuber. Okay.
Yep. Regulation.
This was made a year ago.
Oh no! It's much older. It's been like It's like a 4-year-old video. Hi.
Yeah, you might send me a link on that.
Yeah, I'll send you a link to it. But given kind of where you and I line up politically, I think you will be fascinated and horrified by it in much the same way I was.
Okay.
Not the typical kind of supernatural paranormal thing that you and I enjoy. I would love to get
or eldritch horrors.
Right. But it's a horror in its own sort, and I would love to get your thoughts on it, as well as to kind of provide my own.
Did you hear about the new game that came out called Still Wakes the Deep?
Yeah.
Still Wake what?
Still Wakes the Deep.
No.
It's about an oil rig that they drill into a spot that then opens up a portal and then causes the oil rig to be consumed by a fleshy organic material.
No.
And then transforms people into like these disgusting tentacle like monsters.
Oh my God, no! But send me a link to any kind of preview. Holy shit!
It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's called Still Wakes the Deep.
I will look that up. Let's go get you that, buddy. So, all right. Got a game plan then?
Oh shit! Hold on. I'm gonna at least just do this real quick because it's literally a minute. I might as well just do this right now.
You bring the Polis to my door, to my rig.
I can sort this, right? I just need time.
Don't you answer me back! You're fired. You hear me? Fired.
Jesus, Gregor! Gregor!
Come here to King
Interesting.
Yeah, it just came out.
Boy.
Well, I had to show that one to you at least.
I'll have to check out some more videos on that.
Still Wakes.
But anywho,
I believe, yeah, Still Wakes the Deep is what it was called.
Yeah.
Yep.
Ladies and gentlemen, from my end, we have now found ourselves completing our analysis of the viewing of Fallout, the TV show. And
Season 1.
everything that it was thus far for season 1. I personally am not inclined to bother with a season 2 if and when it should come out. For me, Cooper.
I will give an analysis for episode 1 and see where we go from
Really,
there.
Cooper and Lucy might be enough of a saving grace. Yes, for me to maybe also consider watching an episode 1 of a season 2. However, I am not going to forget any of the findings that I came across, the conclusions from
Absolutely
watching
not.
season 1. If I go into season 2, it will be with the greatest of hesitation and with every warning klaxon armed and at the ready to fire, and for me to say, no, fuck this, I'm walking away. I invested a great deal of time and attention on season 1, and I feel robbed of my time and effort.
Mm-hmm.
And yet, not so. How can I say I'm not been robbed? Because I have enjoyed partaking of this analysis and this conversation with you, Brother Cortex. This kind of analysis, I think, while it is late to the party, it is not without good cause. I'm sure that there's maybe nobody that we have influenced or convinced one way or the other whether or not to give Fallout a chance for season 1. But I would like to hope or like to think that folks like you and I can be turned to in the future when everybody is singing the praises and hosannas of a program like this, and they want someone to look deeper, to dive deeper, as we do here in the Deep Dives, to see, is this program worth my time and effort?
I mean, it's not something I'm going to hold very close to my heart, but I did enjoy Cooper's story. But that being the case of what that may be, I didn't enjoy it in the sense of a Fallout fashion. I just enjoyed Cooper.
Yeah. He was your saving grace for the program.
Otherwise, I really couldn't cared less about the show.
Yep.
That's literally what kept me going.
So yeah, maybe
had he not been there, I wouldn't have watched it.
And you would hope that the folks at Amazon would be willing to hear some feedback that's not just kissing their asses, and consider that moving forward. That hey, you've already lost some people. It's not going to get better. Hey, do not do that. There you go. But anyhow, for me, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to thank you for tuning in. Thank you for watching and for listening. And to Brother Cortex, the Path to the Erd Tree has released for Elden Ring.
Tomorrow.
Okay, it's tomorrow. I assume that Brother Cortex is going to be spending some quality time playing and streaming Path of the Erd Tree.
Shadow of the Erd Tree.
Yep. What is it called?
Shadow of the Erd Tree.
Shadow of the Erd Tree. I would highly recommend you folks at home give that program and that stream a watch and listen. As Brother Cortex goes to the lands beyond, I believe.
I believe it is what they call the realm of the shadow.
Okay.
Not the shadow realm, but the realm of the shadow, and
Right.
I can only imagine what hellscape waits before me, considering that Mog had come from there, literally out of blood. He was then materialized out of blood.
Ew.
He was a blood lord, but yeah.
Well, I think that's going to wrap it for us for today, folks.
Yep, for sure. I've got nothing more else to say other than I wish you all a good day and stay tuned for Friday and tomorrow, of course, because Shadow of the Earth Tree.
Play on.
But till then, guys, take it easy. We're out of here. Much love. We're out.
Peace. Whew.